Chapter 4274. While drawing lots to choose their opponents, it also determined the time of their challenge. Ran Ran and Prince Cheng's group of 4 would challenge Qin Xueqi. This was the 7th group of all the groups. This was considered one of the earlier groups, but it was not the first group to go up. This would allow them to see the strength of Donghuang Yanggu College's students. After drawing lots, the first group of geniuses went up. There were 2 men and 2 women, a total of 4 extremely young genius dragon martial artists. Each of them had inherited blood essence at the level of the Dragon King. One of the young men had advanced from the same chaotic battle as Ran Ran. Of course, Ran Ran did not know him, and Kong Xinmu did not pay attention to him. At this moment, the 2 men and 2 women went straight to the center of the training field and looked at Xueqi. The opponent they drew was Xueqi. Xueqi looked at the 4 of them and estimated their strength. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, and he looked relaxed. However, Kong Xinmu knew this guy's personality very well. Calm and collected? Impossible. This guy just wanted to show off for a bit. You're lucky to have drawn me as your opponent. Xueqi smiled faintly and flew towards the martial arts arena with a relaxed expression. It's your honor to be defeated by me. As a student of Donghuang Yanggu College, his strength was naturally much stronger than the genius dragon martial artists outside. However, the first round of the genius trial was 4 against 1. For the 20 people who had been chosen, this round was the most difficult round. Whoever lost this round would become a laughingstock for the rest of the people. Xueqi obviously did not think that he would lose. His confident look made the 2 young men and 2 young women gnash their teeth in anger. This guy was so confident? Attack! The leading young man was obviously the strongest. He instantly transformed into the body of a 4,000 feet long Dragon King, and the power of wind and snow erupted from his body. The snowstorm instantly enveloped the field and swept toward Xueqi, who had yet to transform into a dragon. Seeing this, Xueqi was not surprised at all. Your strength is too weak, he said softly. The other 19 students of Donghuang Yanggu College wanted to beat him to death after hearing what he had said since he went on stage. Does this guy like to show off so much? 1 against 4, yet he was still so confident. He even had the time to speak such lofty words, making people want to beat him up. However, Xueqi was just like that. If someone tried to persuade him, they would only be asking for trouble. In the face of his opponent's blizzard power, Xueqi instantly transformed into a dragon the moment he finished speaking. Under the expectant gazes of everyone present, Xueqi also transformed into a 4,000 feet long dragon. A golden barrier instantly enveloped his entire body. What kind of dragon martial skill is this? So bright. Everyone was stunned by that burst of golden light. That resplendent golden light was like a small sun. It suddenly appeared on the martial arts field and completely enveloped Xueqi's divine dragon body. This was a defensive dragon martial skill. Moreover, it was a low-tier origin skill. Most importantly, Xueqi had actually cultivated it to the peak of heaven tier. Kong Xinmu had seen this low-tier origin skill before when he was exchanging experience points. It was called Golden Sun Wheel. However, he was not interested in defensive dragon martial skills. Moreover, this dragon martial skill was somewhat flashy but without substance. In other words, opponents who looked very strong or were very close to it could be blinded by the dazzling golden light, causing them to temporarily lose their vision. However, its defensive ability was far inferior to other origin dragon martial skills of the same tier. Xueqi had actually chosen to cultivate this technique. Kong Xinmu saw this, and his face began to twitch. This guy. How could he be so flashy? When the golden sun wheel, which had been cultivated to the peak, was unleashed, the 2 males and 2 females who were very close to the martial arts field, the 4 young genius dragon martial artists, were instantly blinded by the light. Even the other dragon martial artists in the spectator stands could not help but close their eyes. This golden light was too bright. What kind of dragon martial skill is this? It's at least at the level of an origin dragon martial skill. And it has been cultivated to the heaven tier. The students of Donghuang Yanggu College are indeed extraordinary. When everyone opened their eyes and the golden light dissipated, everyone saw that the divine dragon bodies of the 4 young geniuses, 2 males and 2 females, had all landed outside the martial arts field. All of them looked dizzy and had already lost their ability to fight. Apart from those Dragon Emperor martial artists whose cultivation base was close to the peak, no one else had clearly seen how Xueqi had moved. In the end, those 4 people had actually been defeated. That golden light is really... Everyone felt a sense of loss. In this match, they had not been able to witness the strength of Donghuang Yonggu College. However, it was very clear that in the instant that the golden light dissipated, Xueqi had already beaten those 4 people to the ground, and all of them had lost their ability to fight. From this, it could be seen that Xueqi was extremely powerful. Kong Xinmu narrowed his eyes. Even he had not expected that Xueqi had actually cultivated such an origin dragon martial skill. That Sun Wheel Golden Light was not a dragon martial skill that an ordinary person would choose. It seems that the information I introduced to them about those 5 people was not accurate. Their abilities have all improved during this period of time. Kong Xinmu thought to himself. Originally, he had thought that Ran Ran and Prince Cheng's collaboration was a sure win. But now, it seemed that if there were any unexpected situations, it would not be so easy to deal with them. On the field, everyone had to work hard. Once the students of Donghuang Yonggu College lost, they would become the laughingstock of others, and they would also lose experience points. And once they won, they would receive more experience points as rewards. Without a doubt, the students would definitely fight with their lives on the line. With so many people drawing lots together, even if some of them knew each other in private, there was no possibility of them conceding on purpose. Moreover, in a situation where both sides would receive great rewards for winning, no one would go easy on them. I must be careful. Kong Xinmu thought to himself. He hoped that Ran Ran would not be careless. From Chu Ye's current performance, she should be able to imagine that the other 4 people that Kong Xinmu had introduced would definitely have some hidden skills that they had not shown to Kong Xinmu before. If they were not vigilant, they might fail miserably in an easy task, and their hopes of entering Donghuang Yonggu College would be dashed. Although Ran Ran was still very young, and there would be another chance, if they failed this time, they would have to wait for a year. If they entered Donghuang Yonggu College a year earlier, how much could they improve? It was unimaginable. Therefore they had to fight for this opportunity. Kong Xinmu had not expected that Xueqi would actually cultivate such a flashy skill. However, there were many matches today, and no one would be paying attention to him. Chapter 4275. There wasn't much to look forward to in the next few matches. Kong Xinmu didn't recognize the genius dragon martial artist. As for the students from Donghuang Yonggu College, Kong Xinmu didn't recognize them either. As for victory and defeat, there were naturally wins and losses. If it was 4 against 1, even the students from Donghuang Yonggu College would feel pressured. After all, these were only the students from the outermost Alcade district. If it was a student at Lin Yuji's level, not to mention 4, even 40 of them might not be a match for her. Their combat strength was on a completely different level. In a true crushing situation, as long as one wasn't too stupid, one could completely drag out dozens of opponents to death until they exhausted their strength. One move of the dragon martial technique could even kill a few fellows. How were they supposed to fight? If the difference in strength was too great, there was no need to test them. It wasn't a test, it wasn't a trial, it was torture, it was a crushing. In the 7th group, it was finally Ran Ran and Prince Cheng's turn to go up together. Together with them were the other 2 inheritors of the Dragon King's blood essence. Their strength was not bad, and their cultivation was at the 5th level of the Nirvana Tribulation realm. Such a 4-person team was undoubtedly very powerful. When Qin Shoji entered the arena, he had a gloomy expression on his face. Even he knew that the opponents he had drawn would not be easy to deal with. It was very likely that he would be defeated like the previous 2 students. Once he was defeated, people would probably use this matter to mock him if he continued to talk nonsense in the future. To him, this was an extremely painful thing. It was so hard to not be able to mock others with his mouth anymore. But no matter what, no one could change the opponents they had drawn. Qin Shoji could only bite the bullet and go up. After going up, he didn't say a word because he knew that he would lose. So, no matter how much he said, it would be meaningless. Instead, it would make him look like a joke. At this time, Qin Shoji didn't act too presumptuously. Challenge, begin. As one of the instructors gave the order, the battle on the field began. The 5 participants instantly transformed into divine dragons. Kong Xinmu didn't say anything as he watched the battle from the side. Instead, he carefully observed Qin Shoji's battle. In the end, he discovered that Qin Shoji's battle style was completely different from Chu Ye's strange dragon martial skill. Although this person's mouth was cheap, It had to be said that he still had some strength. Just the peak origin dragon martial technique had already merged 3 moves. One for defense, one for offense, and one for speed. The 3 complemented each other. Although there was nothing too eye-catching about it, it was very stable in battle, leaving no gaps for others to exploit. Even if Prince Cheng and Ran Ran joined forces, it would still be difficult to deal with him. His defense was impeccable, and Qin Shoji might even counterattack when they attacked. This was the strength of the students of Donghuang Yonggu College. Such a battle was nothing to Kong Xinmu. If he were to enter the arena, he wouldn't need to spend too much effort to defeat either side. But for the other young dragon martial artists, such a battle was already very exciting. If it was only Ran Ran and Prince Chung, this battle would probably last for a long time. Unfortunately, it was 4 against 1 in the first round. No matter how strong Qin Shoji was and how tight his defense was, if he couldn't finish off one of his opponents quickly and reduce the number of opponents, he would soon be at a disadvantage. In the end, he was hit in the head by Prince Cheng, and he fell onto the arena. It was okay to lose. But losing in such a humiliating manner made Qin Shoji's face darken. He admitted defeat. When he dragged his injured body back, he looked at Prince Cheng deeply. The meaning in his eyes was clear. "Brat, you better not enter Donghuang Yonggu College. If you really enter, you'll be in trouble." Unfortunately, Prince Cheng was very carefree and didn't care about Qin Shoji's gaze. Seeing that Qin Shoji had admitted defeat and the 4 of them had won, he immediately grinned. "Haha, we won. We're 1 step closer to entering Donghuang Yonggu College." He was very confident. Unfortunately, the other 2 dragon martial artists who were with him and Ran Ran looked at each other and felt a little uncomfortable. Because in the next round, it would be 3 against 1. Among the genius dragon martial artists who won in this round, almost all of them would form a new team. In their team of 4, one of them would definitely be kicked out. Ran Ran and Prince Chung must have teamed up. Then between the 2 of them, one of them would definitely leave. They could either give up or join another team and form a team of 3 with the genius dragon martial artists who had been kicked out. Needless to say, once they were kicked out, their chances of winning in the next round would be very low. After all, the other dragon martial artist in his team would definitely be kicked out by the other 4 teams. Then, his strength would definitely be the weakest. It could be foreseen that tonight, many dragon martial artists would secretly compete for the chance of winning tomorrow. Whoever could join the team tomorrow had to be decided tonight. No matter what, if they won the 3 against 1 round, they would have a chance to enter the final round. If they lost tomorrow, they would definitely not have any chance. Of course, the chances of winning the 2 against 1 would be even lower. But no matter what, since they were participating in the genius trial, they would definitely give it a try. They would not give up until the very last moment. Once they joined Donghuang Yonggu College, they would rise up like a carp leaping over the dragon's gate. To them, although they did not know about the existence of the Super Dragon God, nor did they know why Donghuang Yonggu College existed, they knew that the dragon martial artists who graduated from Donghuang Yonggu College would eventually become powerful. This kind of opportunity was rare in the world. Although it happened once every year, if they failed this year, how could it be so easy to succeed next year? Most importantly, for many people, this year was their last chance. Next year, their age would exceed the registration limit and they would not be able to sign up. This made them want to risk their lives to see if they could make it to the end. So tonight, there was bound to be a lot of bloodshed. In order to fight for the chance to stay in a stronger team tomorrow. For this chance, it was nothing to fight until one's head bled. This kind of situation was not uncommon, and Donghuang Yonggu College would not stop it. It was a fact that the more talented one could join Donghuang Yonggu College. Donghuang Yonggu College existed to nurture the Super Dragon God. If one was too talented, it would be a waste of resources to join. Because of this, the number of people who could join Donghuang Yonggu College through the genius trial was relatively small. Those who were truly talented to join Donghuang Yonggu College had mostly obtained the East Emperor seal from their respective Dragon Emperor's holy tower, and could officially join Donghuang Yonggu College. Chapter 4276. After Ran Ran won, Kong Xinmu did not leave. Instead, he continued to watch the battles. After all, no one knew who Ran Ran would face next. It was necessary to observe the other students in advance and see what tricks they had up their sleeves. Otherwise, it would be a tragedy if he encountered Xueqi. He would probably have to leave the arena early. That kid was too cunning. He had actually secretly cultivated that frightening dragon origin martial technique. It was fine if he didn't use it, but once he used it, it would be shocking. However, Kong Shinmu watched until the end. There were more than 50 matches today, and he did not see anything too shocking. This made him breathe a sigh of relief. If he did not use any tricks when fighting against 4 people, then there was basically nothing to pay attention to in the following 3 or 2 people challenges. There should be no problem. Kong Shinmu estimated that if Ran Ran and Prince Chung worked together, it would not be too much of a problem for them to deal with any one of the 20 students. There were still 2 days left. One would be 3 against 1, and the other would be 2 against 1. As long as they could win, Ran Ran would pass the genius trial and become an official student of Donghuang Yonggu College. Of course, if Ran Ran could win, Prince Cheng would definitely be able to join Donghuang Yonggu College. This gave Kong Shinmu a headache. This Prince Cheng, Liang Luo, was almost like a monkey. He was hard to discipline. If he joined Donghuang Yonggu College, he would probably be very mischievous. However, this had nothing to do with Kong Shinmu. In any case, he only hoped that Ran Ran could join Donghuang Yonggu College. At that time, he could go out with Ran Ran to gain experience. His efficiency would definitely be faster than now. As for tonight, how the other 2 dragon warriors in Ran Ran's group would fight had nothing to do with Kong Shinmu. The next day, the 3rd round of the genius trial of Donghuang Yonggu College was 3 against 1. Before Kong Shinmu arrived with Fire Phoenix, he already knew that the one who could fight alongside Ran Ran and Prince Cheng today was the taller of the 2 teammates from yesterday. As for the shorter one, he didn't even appear in the arena today. Kong Shinmu guessed that he might have been injured in last night's duel and couldn't fight today. This opportunity was not fated with that kid. However, even if he could win with Ran Ran and Prince Cheng today, the chances of him winning the 2 against 1 tomorrow was not high. Of course, this had nothing to do with Kong Shinmu. He only cared about Ran Ran. First, it was time to draw lots. Ran Ran, Prince Cheng, and the taller dragon warrior went up to the arena together and drew lots with the other teams. This time, they drew a student that Kong Shinmu didn't know. However, that student's performance in yesterday's 2 battles was average. He lost one and won the other. Even when he lost that match, he didn't display any powerful means. This guy doesn't seem to be that passionate about winning. Kong Shinmu narrowed his eyes and glanced at that student. Speaking of which, it made sense. Usually, students who won in the genius trial would only get experience points as a reward. Moreover, the experience points for winning a battle were not much. In the stage of 1 against 4, there was no need to risk his life. If he was seriously injured and couldn't participate in the next battle, it would be a real loss. After all, as long as he persevered, it would be easy to win the next battle. Furthermore, if they were to be heavily injured during the trial, it would be a very shameful thing for the students. Then today, when he meets Ran Ran and Prince Chung, I'm afraid he won't use his full strength. At least, he won't use the dragon martial technique that will affect his condition. Kong Shinmu narrowed his eyes. This was a good situation. He was afraid that he would meet someone like Xueqi, who would use a flashy dragon martial technique and blind everyone's eyes. If that was the case, it would be difficult to deal with him. Ran Ran's team was placed first in today's competition. Fortunately, after yesterday's battle, the 3 of them were the first to fight today. They didn't need to earn anything. Moreover, they were no longer as clueless about their opponents as they were yesterday. After all, they had seen their opponents fight the day before. The 3 of them went up. That student also went up with a solemn expression. After all, he knew that in this genius trial, there were a few strong people that he had to pay attention to. 2 of them were Ran Ran and Prince Chung. Today, he was actually going up against the 2 of them. If he could win, of course he wanted to win. However, today's battle would be a little more difficult. After they went up, the instructor announced the start of the competition. The 4 of them turned into dragon martial artists almost at the same time. The divine dragon that the student transformed into was also more than 400 zhang long. However, the aura of the Dragon King's blood essence was extremely strong, shocking everyone in the arena. How young was this kid? He had already cultivated 50% of the Dragon King's blood essence. He was only half the distance away from the Dragon Emperor. Was this the strength of the students of Donghuang Yonggu College? Only the students of Donghuang Yonggu College knew that this kid had been in Donghuang Yonggu College for a long time and had absorbed more Dragon Mark energy. In other words, after being in the college for so long, he was still in the outermost Alcade district. Compared to others, his talent was indeed very poor. Of course, this person had been in Donghuang Yonggu College for a long time. Even if his talent was a little poor, he was still much stronger than others. At this moment, when the competition had just started, this person had already unleashed a tyrannical origin dragon martial technique. At this time, everyone realized that the students of Donghuang Yonggu College almost always used the origin dragon martial technique. Moreover, it was a heaven-level origin dragon martial technique. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for them to pass the test of the Holy Tower of the Dragon Emperor Kingdom and obtain the East Emperor seal. And this time, the 20 student dragon martial artists had cultivated at least 2 kinds of origin dragon martial techniques. Moreover, they had cultivated them to the peak. Compared to the young dragon martial artists outside, they were not just a little bit stronger. Even if it was 3 against 1, it was definitely not an easy task. Moreover, because the students of Donghuang Yonggu College had experienced many trials and had rich combat experience, they were much more mature than the average young genius dragon martial artist. Of course, this was only referring to the average genius dragon martial artist. Ran used to be a member of the Dark Dragon team. Although she had lost her memories of the Dark Dragon team, her instincts from countless battles were still there. In comparison, Prince Feng was slightly weaker in terms of combat experience. However, his coordination with Ran was not bad. The main thing was that Prince Feng would be in the front and Ran would be behind him, waiting for an opportunity to attack. This kind of coordination was the most basic. If it was not good, there was no need to be a dragon martial artist. In addition, the other tall dragon martial artist kept harassing them from the side, making it impossible for the other party to use his full strength. After fighting for about half an hour, the other party was the first to be defeated. Today's first battle. The genius trial taker had won. This made many people a little excited. Because today's battle was 3 against 1. If their coordination was not very good, they would not have much of an advantage. If they could win today, then as long as they won another match tomorrow, they would be able to join Donghuang Yonggu College and become an official student. Outside the arena, everyone looked at Ran and the other 2 with envy and jealousy. Even some of the older experts felt the same way. Chapter 4277. Ran's team had defeated the student from Donghuang Yonggu College, and the crowd was in an uproar. However, they were not so lucky in the following battles. Ran and Prince Chung were really strong, not to mention the student from Donghuang Yonggu College. Their opponent was not too strong, which was why they were able to win. However, the next 3 battles all ended with the defeat of the genius trial takers. They were not weak, and even in the Dragon Emperor Kingdom, their combat power could be said to be among the best of the younger generation. However, the student from Donghuang Yonggu College was even stronger. This caused them to be defeated regretfully. If it was not difficult to win, there would probably be people who could join Donghuang Yonggu College every year, and the number of students in Donghuang Yonggu College would increase by at least 1 or 2 times. Donghuang Yonggu College was not a welfare institute, but an existence built to select Super Shenron. Although these people were not weak since they had lost, it meant that they basically had no chance of becoming Super Shenron. After all, there were very few who could become Super Shenron. Even among the students from Donghuang Yonggu College, how many of them could become Super Shenron? Now, the selection system for Donghuang Yonggu College's students was very relaxed. Even among the students from Donghuang Yonggu College, it was already very good to have 1% of them become Super Shenron. This showed how difficult it was to become Super Shenron. Even if the Dragon Mark had enough energy, one had to be talented enough to absorb enough Dragon Mark energy. Otherwise, at the Dragon Emperor stage, there would be a bottleneck every 10% of progress. This was why after a Dragon Warrior reached the level of the Dragon Emperor, the progress of the Divine Dragon's blood essence became very slow. For example, the Flame Dragon Emperor was basically stuck at 9%, and probably could not reach 10% in this lifetime. This was the limit of his talent. Generally speaking, those who absorbed the energy of the Dragon Mark with a higher efficiency were more talented. Therefore, the selection of Donghuang Yonggu College was basically to select those with strong combat power. Basically, there was no such thing as a dragon martial artist with high talent and weak combat power. Therefore, losing in the genius trial was a loss. Although it was a pity, there was no other way. When it came to the fifth match, the genius trial taker finally won another match. However, it was a difficult victory. Throughout the day, there were only 3 groups that could win. In other words, only 9 people would be able to participate in the final round tomorrow. In the last round, 2 people would form a team and fight against the students from Donghuang Yonggu College. Therefore, among these 9 people, there would definitely be one person who would not even have the chance to go on stage. As for who didn't have the chance to go on stage, it had nothing to do with Kong Shin-mu. Everything depended on the competition of the remaining few people tonight. Whoever was the weakest would be eliminated. Generally speaking, in this round, all the remaining people would gather together to decide who was the strongest and who was the weakest. Then, the strong would form an alliance and the weak would be eliminated. Alternatively, they would form their own team and go on stage. 3 against 1 matches were already very difficult. 2 against 1 was almost impossible to win. However, the situation this year was different. Ran Ran and Prince Chung had already been confirmed to fight together. Therefore, the others could only play by themselves. Honestly speaking, other than Ran Ran and Prince Chung, there was basically no possibility of the others joining Donghuang Yonggu College as a student. Of course, they still had to compete. Early the next morning, Kong Shin-mu brought his people to the competition venue. As the number of spectators increased, the 5 Donghuang Yonggu College mentors also arrived. Finally, it was time for the drawing of lots on the last day. Ran Ran walked up to the stage to draw lots. There were a total of 6 genius trial takers in the other 3 groups. They looked at her back with complicated expressions. Originally, they had planned to go to the end with Ran Ran, but in the end, Prince Cheng beat them to it. They had no choice but to form a team. However, they knew that going on stage was probably just a formality. It was too difficult to win against a student from Donghuang Yonggu College with just 2 people. She drew Xueqi. Soon, the result of Ran Ran's drawing was out. Everyone subconsciously looked at Xueqi, who was sitting on the stage and waiting carelessly. This guy was not simple. Regardless of whether it was 4 against 1 or 3 against 1, he had fought twice. Every time, he had ended the battle extremely quickly without any hesitation. This showed how strong he was. Now the most promising team to join Donghuang Yonggu College, Ran Ran and Prince Cheng's team, had actually met Xueqi. This was going to be a good show. Some people were jealous. Naturally, they did not want them to win against Xueqi and join Donghuang Yonggu College. Some people, such as Kong Shin-mu, felt that it was a little troublesome. Although Xueqi had just joined Donghuang Yonggu College not long ago, he was still quite strong. Moreover, this guy seemed to have some unique skills that were harder to deal with than the others. Just that disgusting dragon skill, Golden Sun Wheel, was enough to make his opponent uncomfortable. Needless to say, this guy might have some other skills that he had not used. There were 8 people in total. They were divided into 4 groups and drew lots. In this group, only 4 students from Donghuang Yonggu College could fight. The others could only watch from the side. Winning was basically a piece of cake. As long as they were drawn, they would be rewarded with experience points. Of course, if they lost, they would definitely lose the experience points. Not only that, they might even be punished. After all, as a student of Donghuang Yonggu College, they were too weak if they could not win against 2 people at once. Of course, the punishment would not be very severe. After all, the purpose of the genius trial was to select the genius dragon martial artists. It was still quite encouraging for the genius dragon martial artists to win against the students of Donghuang Yonggu College. Ran Ran, I remember you. At this time, Xueqi ran out with a cheeky smile. Actually, I wanted to ask you a long time ago. What's your relationship with Kong Shin-mu? Why don't you follow me? Big brother Chu will bring you to eat and drink. Ran Ran looked at him calmly. Fine, just based on what you said, I will definitely beat you half to death on the stage later. She did not have a good temper. She would only be gentle and obedient in front of Kong Shin-mu. In front of others, she was not so easy to talk to. Especially when Xueqi actually dared to tease her. Although she did not show it on the surface, she would not be satisfied if she did not teach him a lesson later. In everyone's eyes, it would be difficult for Ran Ran and Prince Cheng to fight against Xueqi. But in fact, in the previous battle, Ran Ran did not use all her strength. Chapter 4278. Although they were the first to draw lots, they were not the first to fight. There were a total of 8 people in this round, divided into 4 groups. Ran Ran and Prince Chung were the third to fight. As it was the last round, there was a longer interval between today's battles. There were 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. Qin Fangyu was the first to fight in the morning. Are you saying that she is a student of the same mentor as you? Fire Phoenix, who was beside Kong Shinmu, looked at Qin Fangyu curiously. Yes, she is quite strong. At least she should have no problem in this battle. Kong Shinmu nodded. He knew Qin Fangyu quite well. After all, he interacted with Qin Fangyu, Lu Hua, and the others often. After all, they were the same mentor. When Kong Shinmu was injured, she took care of him for a period of time. In this battle, Qin Fangyu was facing a man and a woman, both of whom were at the 6th tier of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, the Genius Dragon King. Qin Fangyu was at the 7th tier of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm. However, her strength was not as simple as the 7th tier of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm. The students of Donghuang Yongwu College were much stronger in terms of the cultivation of the origin dragon martial technique than the dragon martial artists from the outside world. Moreover, Qin Fangyu had already cultivated to 29% of the divine dragon blood essence at the Dragon King level. On the other hand, the 2 opponents had just entered the Dragon King level. This was a huge difference. The higher the level of the Dragon King level, the stronger the strength. It was not as simple as a little bit higher. This was also the reason why any of the instructors in the Eastern Imperial Dragon Martial Academy were existences that could crush everyone in the outside world. No matter how many Dragon Emperors there were, they would not be a match for the mentors. The first battle started quickly and ended just as quickly. Qin Fangyu only used a few moves of the Origin Dragon Martial Technique. The 2 opponents could not withstand it and were defeated not long after. The entire battle took less than the time it took for a joss stick to burn. Such an obvious gap in strength made everyone in the spectator stands fall silent. Were the students of Donghuang Yongwu College so terrifying? The top geniuses from the outside world had lost miserably, 2 against 1. In terms of cultivation level, there was not much difference. There was a slight difference in blood essence, but it was said that if one entered Donghuang Yongwu College, the difference could be made up. Some people felt that if they were given a chance to enter Donghuang Yongwu College, they would be as strong as the students of Donghuang Yongwu College. After all, the resources of Donghuang Yongwu College could not be compared to the outside world. But what they didn't know was that the Eastern Emperor Dragon Martial Academy's goal was to nurture a super divine dragon. They had already fallen so far behind. Even if they entered the Eastern Emperor Dragon Martial Academy, how could they possibly catch up to the others? The entire academy's Dragon Mark energy wasn't even enough for the students to use, and they had to compete in the form of a big competition every year. More than half of the students could only stay in the outermost Alcade district. To be honest, other than the students who had just entered Donghuang Yongwu College, the students in Alcade district did not have much hope of becoming Super Shenron. Compared to the students in Alcade district, what was that? The students in Alcade district were the weakest in Donghuang Yongwu College. Just like Kong Shinmu. His strength had surpassed the students in Alcade district. He could not be chosen as a candidate for the genius trial. Of course, there could be other reasons why Kong Shinmu was not chosen. But one thing was certain. If Kong Shinmu came for the genius trial, not to mention 2 against 1, even 3 against 1, even 10 against 1 would not be able to defeat Kong Shinmu. These people's attacks were like tickles to Kong Shinmu. They could not hurt Kong Shinmu even if he stood still. This was the difference. And Kong Shinmu's strength was only at Alioth district. Alcade. Mizar. Alioth. Kong Shinmu was only at the 3rd level. The strength of the students in Donghuang Yongwu College was divided into 7 levels. So, for a low-level student in Donghuang Yongwu College to be able to fight against 2 top geniuses from the outside, was that not enough to explain the problem? Resources were limited. Only the strongest were qualified to join Donghuang Yongwu College. Regardless of whether the people outside could understand it or not, this was the truth. Even if they could not understand it, there was nothing they could do to change it. After the first round, they rested for about an hour. Then, the second round began. This time, the 2 sides were evenly matched. It was not that the students of Donghuang Yongwu College had become weak. Rather, the challengers were stronger than the previous ones. They were two genius dragon martial artists at the 7th level of the Nirvana Tribulation realm. On average, they were one level higher than the previous ones. In this way, the battle would naturally be slightly more difficult. But it was only slightly more difficult. Even if Kong Shin-mu did not know the student who fought, there was no doubt about his strength. This person was a dragon martial artist who was proficient in defense. The origin dragon martial technique that he cultivated was inclined towards defense and counterattack. First of all, his defense was impregnable. He allowed the two opponents to attack him together for a while, but he did not move at all. And the opponent's continuous attacks would always reveal an opening. And when the opponent revealed an opening, it would be the time for the student to counterattack. With just one move, he heavily injured the opponent. Clean and efficient. And one of the opponents was heavily injured. The remaining person could not hold on alone, so he was quickly defeated and admitted defeat. In the two battles in the morning, although it was 1 against 2, it still made people feel very aggrieved. It was clearly 2 against 1, but no matter what, they were at a disadvantage. The students of Donghuang Yonggu College were too strong. As for the afternoon, everyone had pinned their hopes on Ran Ran and Prince Cheng. Now, only the two of them had a chance of defeating the students of Donghuang Yonggu College. But their opponent was Xueqi, and Xueqi was not so easy to deal with. Among the 20 students of Donghuang Yonggu College, Xueqi's strength was definitely ranked at the top. Who would win and who would lose would depend on the afternoon. Since the beginning of the Genius Trial, there were many students who had joined Donghuang Yonggu College through this method. Among the 20 students on the stage, there were even some who had joined the Genius Trial and had won in the end. But before this year's Genius Trial, it had been 3 years in a row that no one had passed the Genius Trial and become a student of Donghuang Yonggu College. If no one succeeded this year, it would be 4 years in a row. If this continued, some geniuses would not want to participate in the Genius Trial anymore. It was too embarrassing. For cultivators, half a day passed very quickly. In the afternoon, the first battle was about to begin. Ran Ran and Prince Cheng went up to the stage. As for Xueqi, he picked his ear with one hand and his eyes fell on Ran Ran. "So, have you thought it through?" "Yes, I will beat you into a pig's head later." Chapter 4279. As soon as they stepped onto the stage, they transformed into their divine dragon forms and an explosive force swept across the entire arena. Ran Ran didn't mind Xueqi's teasing too much. Prince Cheng, on the other hand, was very displeased. "Ran Ran is my boss Zhang's woman. How dare you tease her? You must be tired of living." After Prince Cheng met Kong Shin-mu the last time, he admired Kong Shin-mu because Kong Shin-mu was too young. Although Kong Shin-mu's current cultivation base was relatively weak, Prince Cheng felt that Kong Shin-mu would definitely rise up very soon. After all, there were not many people who could become a student of Donghuang Yonggu College at such a young age. For example, in the Genius Trial, the older one was, the more advantageous it would be. Those who were younger would not be able to compete with official students of Donghuang Yonggu College. Moreover, Kong Shin-mu had entered Donghuang Yonggu College through the sanctum. This made Kong Shin-mu's talent even more terrifying. It was not just talent but also combat power. Kong Shin-mu's combat power was definitely not low since he was able to become a student of Donghuang Yonggu College. Therefore, Prince Cheng felt that he could rely on Kong Shin-mu. Regardless of whether he could become a student of Donghuang Yonggu College or not, there was nothing wrong in building a good relationship with Kong Shin-mu. Hearing Prince Cheng's words, Xueqi was instantly enraged. "Forget that Kong Shin-mu is stronger than me. You're just a kid who hasn't even entered Donghuang Yonggu College. How dare you be so arrogant in front of me?" It had to be said that Xueqi had a lot of pride. Although he knew that it was wrong of him to tease Ran Ran, he should not let this kid in front of him teach him a lesson. If Kong Shin-mu came knocking on his door, he would admit defeat. But now, he could not admit defeat. Golden Sun Wheel. Without even thinking, Xueqi instantly unleashed this peerless origin dragon martial technique. The entire place instantly turned bright and dazzling. Unfortunately, he had used this move before, so both Ran Ran and Prince Cheng were prepared for it. When the golden light flashed, the slender black dragon that Ran Ran had transformed into closed her eyes. She had grown up in the dark. When she was in the Dark Dragon group, she had spent a lot of time training in the dark. Even if she closed her eyes, She could easily find Chu Ye's location based on her previous experience. As for Prince Sui, when the golden light exploded, he actually threw out a black satin cloth from his body. This black satin cloth instantly wrapped around his mystical dragon's head, covering his mystical dragon's eyes. This stunned everyone present. There's such a method? Prince Feng, who was covered by the black satin, could still see Ye's position and movements clearly even though his vision had turned black. As for the golden sun wheel, it was completely useless against Prince Feng. No one present had expected Prince Feng to use such a method to deal with it. Many of them sincerely admired him. Even if he had thought of such a method, it would not have been easy to obtain such a long black satin cloth in a short period of time. Little did they know that this black satin cloth was something that Prince Feng's father had worked hard for a day and a night in the Donghuang Dragon Martial City. If he wanted to cover someone's eyes, the black satin cloth could be found anywhere. But to cover a mystical dragon, especially one at the level of the Dragon King, such a large piece of black satin cloth was not easy to obtain. It could be seen that the black satin cloth that Prince Feng used to cover his eyes was pieced together from dozens of pieces of black cloth. There were even traces of stitching. This time, even Xueqi was dumbfounded. This fellow could do this? On the contrary, he was almost blinded by his own move. Fortunately, he had his own methods. He was almost unaffected by it when he narrowed his eyes. It was also at this moment that Ran Ran's attack suddenly swept over. Shadow Dragon's Sky Raising Break, this origin dragon martial technique that had been cultivated to its peak, condensed 6 black dragon shadows. 6 pitch-black beams of light bombarded Xueqi. Then, Chu Ye's body glowed with a golden light. Another origin dragon martial technique blocked Ran Ran's attack. Why do you have to be so fierce? If you don't want to follow me, then forget it. Xueqi was still being mischievous. At this time, Prince Feng's attack came from the side like a gust of wind. Countless blades slashed down from the sky. Together with Ran Ran's attack, Chu Ye's golden defense was shattered. The two of them combined their strength and burst out an extremely strong attack, breaking Chu Ye's defense in an instant. In particular, Prince Feng's countless blades, which had not been shown in the previous battle, instantly broke Chu Ye's defense. Son, you're amazing. In the spectator stand, not far behind Kong Shinmu, the Dragon Emperor's father from Liang Dragon Country was already cheering loudly. Behind him, 100 powerful dragon warriors from Liang Dragon Country roared one after another. Their roars shook the sky, and their momentum was magnificent. This kind of support was something that had not happened in the past few years of the Genius Trial. Donghuang Dragon Martial City was full of experts these days. No one would bring 100 experts to cheer for their son. After all, this was a trial. What if something happened to their hometown with so many experts? Therefore, Prince Feng's father was definitely a weirdo. But at this time, no one was in the mood to care about his father. After all, this was a crucial battle. Once Prince Feng and Ran Ran won, both of them would be able to join Donghuang Yanggu College and become official students. Everyone was very nervous. After all, it had been several years since the Genius Trial had selected students. I didn't expect you to have a hidden card. Xueqi glanced at Prince Feng, and a dangerous look appeared in his divine dragon eyes. To be honest, his defensive dragon martial skill had not been mastered yet. Defense was only one of its functions. This dragon martial skill was actually the Golden Sun Chakram. The Golden Sun Chakram had 3 ways to cultivate this origin dragon martial skill. One was to attack, one was to defend, and one was to confuse the opponent's vision, just like what he had used before. The defensive and offensive forms of the Golden Sun Chakram were very difficult to cultivate. But once successfully cultivated, the effect would be much stronger than the origin dragon martial skill of the same level. The essence of the Golden Sun Chakram was to condense golden light, and it could freely switch between the 2 forms. It was very adaptable in battle. Unfortunately, he had not mastered it yet. Whether it was offense or defense, he was only a dabbler. In the previous battle, Xueqi had used this 3-in-1 origin dragon martial skill to wipe out all his opponents. But now, his half-baked defense had been broken by Ran Ran and Prince Feng in one move. It seems that I have to use some real skills. Xueqi chuckled. He was not really interested in Ran Ran. It was just that he felt uncomfortable if he did not act naughtily every day. That was why he teased her. Chapter 4280. Thinking of this, Xueqi exploded almost instantly. His divine dragon form exuded a terrifying pressure, as if the dragon god of the 9 heavens had descended, causing the surrounding void to distort. 9 heavens divine might. Middle tier origin skill. 9 heavens divine might. When he used this move, the entire void trembled. Ran Ran and Prince Feng, who were in the air above the martial arts practice ground, felt as if they had been struck by lightning. The 2 divine dragons retreated as if they had been hit by a heavy hammer. 9 heavens divine might. A middle-tier source dragon martial technique. This was a powerful dragon martial technique that surpassed ordinary dragon martial techniques. It did not have a direct offensive effect, but it allowed the user's divine dragon form to carry the tyrannical pressure of a divine dragon. When the Dragon King used it, it was at the level of a Dragon Emperor. When the Dragon Emperor used it, it was at the level of a super divine dragon. One should not underestimate this kind of pressure that came from a higher-level divine dragon's essence blood. When the 9 heavens divine might was unleashed, the main thing that came from this origin dragon martial technique was the mental pressure that it gave off. Ran Ran had trained in the Dark Dragon Squad for a long time, so her mental strength was extremely strong. Even so, she felt dizzy and unable to use her normal strength under the 9 heavens divine might. As for Prince Feng, it was even worse. His entire divine dragon body was sent flying and curled up in midair. He was unable to resist the 9 heavens divine might. This is an even stronger origin dragon martial technique. What kind of pressure is this? Even this dragon emperor feels the pressure. Too strong. Is this the weakest batch of students from Donghuang Yonggu College? In the spectator stands, many dragon emperors were shocked. All the dragon emperors felt threatened by the 9 heavens celestial might dragon martial technique. From this, it could be seen how powerful Xueqi's spiritual pressure was. It was not easy for Ran Ran to barely maintain her combat strength. This kid actually. On the spectator stand, Kong Xinmu narrowed his eyes in surprise. In Donghuang Yonggu College, mid-tier origin skills were not as common as cabbages. They required a large number of experience points to exchange for. Ever since he entered Donghuang Yonggu College, Kong Xinmu had used his experience points to exchange for materials to raise his cultivation realm. He had also exchanged for natural treasures to cultivate the chaotic dragon body. These had a great impact on his improvement in strength. As for Xueqi, he and Kong Xinmu joined Donghuang Yonggu College together. Up until now, apart from the quality of the inherited blood essence, this brat's cultivation base hadn't increased in the slightest. Kong Xinmu had thought that he hadn't made much progress, but he hadn't expected that he had secretly exchanged for a mid-tier origin skill. This was out of Kong Xinmu's expectations. Xueqi normally didn't reveal himself, but he was actually preparing a powerful technique. If it weren't for the fact that Ran Ran and Prince Yen were so powerful, he would probably still be hiding it. He wouldn't use it unless he had no other choice. This guy has hidden himself quite well. Kong Xinmu squinted his eyes. Last time they had gone on a mission together, in the underground cavern, Xueqi hadn't used this dragon technique even when he was in dire straits. He hadn't expected that he would be forced to reveal it now. It seemed that this guy took the genius trials very seriously. More importantly, it would be too embarrassing if he lost. As a genius of Donghuang Yonggu College, it should have been quite easy for him to take on 2 other geniuses by himself. There were 4 matches in total today. If nothing unexpected happened, he would be the only one who had a chance of losing. How could he not work hard? Last time, he had been forced to call out his instructor because, at that time, he wouldn't have been able to resolve the situation even if he had unleashed the might of the 9 heavens. But now, he had no choice but to use this technique. When the might of the 9 heavens appeared, Prince Yan's divine dragon body instantly retreated, trembling. In front of him was the mental pressure of the Dragon Emperor, causing him to tremble from the bottom of his heart. Although he knew that it was fake, the grade of the divine dragon's blood essence had a huge impact on a dragon martial artist. It wasn't something he could decide on his own. On the other hand, Ran Ran didn't know how she was able to withstand such pressure. Although she was slightly affected, it wasn't a big deal. At least she could continue fighting, unlike Prince Yen who had basically lost his ability to move. Dark Dragon Filth Resistance. Soon, Ran Ran felt the power of the Dark Dragon Filth Resistance in her body erupt, helping her resist the Dragon Emperor's pressure. Under such pressure, her strength was suppressed, but it wasn't fatal. Void Dragon Sky-Piercing Strike. Under this kind of pressure, Ran attacked at the fastest speed possible. She took advantage of the time when Xueqi was still preparing to attack and attacked first. Xueqi clearly hadn't expected that Ran would still be able to attack at this time. This was almost impossible. When an expert like the Dragon Emperor intentionally unleashed his mental pressure, even a dragon martial artist like the Dragon King would be greatly affected. Normally, Kong Xinmu didn't feel anything when facing the Dragon Emperor because the Dragon Emperor's pressure didn't land on him. Once the pressure descended, Kong Xinmu would feel the same as Ran and Prince Yen. Of course, Kong Xinmu also cultivated the Dark Dragon Filth Resistance. This high-tier origin skill had the special effect of resisting the Divine Dragon's pressure, but no one knew about it before. At this time, the Void Dragon Sky-Piercing Strike was unleashed. The 6 dragon shadows instantly spat out 6 pitch-black beams of light that shot towards Xueqi. At this time, Xueqi's entire divine dragon body was like a dragon god descending, releasing a boundless might. When the 6 pitch-black light beams swept over, the golden light once again covered Xueqi's surroundings, protecting his entire divine dragon body. The 9 Heavens Divine Might. The effect of this dragon technique was not just a simple mental pressure. Most importantly, after using this dragon technique for a period of time, the dragon martial artist's combat strength would rise to a very high level. For example, the current Xueqi, who originally had the power of the Dragon King's inherited blood essence, actually contained a small portion of the Dragon Emperor's aura. This caused the power of his dragon technique to also contain the Dragon Emperor's aura. Of course, this level of Xueqi was still not enough for Kong Xinmu. If he really could obtain the power of the Dragon Emperor's inherited blood essence in a short period of time, he would have used it back in the underground cave. More importantly, this technique could make him stronger, but there was a limit to how much stronger he could get. Most importantly, his increase in strength could not last for very long. If he couldn't finish the battle in a short period of time, he would actually collapse. Ran's Void Dragon Sky-Raising Break landed on his golden barrier, but it was immediately blocked. There was no way for it to break through. But Xueqi still felt very uncomfortable. Chapter 4281. If the divine might of the 9 heavens had no effect on Ran, then it would be difficult for Xueqi to defeat Ran. At this moment, he unleashed his golden sun wheel attack. A wave of golden light poured down on Ran like a waterfall, accompanied by a frightening consciousness pressure. Ran's defensive techniques were quite ordinary. She only used a grade 2 dragon martial technique, and a shadow barrier instantly appeared in front of her. Wanting to block Xueqi's attack with this shadow barrier was simply a pipe dream. In the blink of an eye, the shadow barrier was shattered, and the wave of golden light landed on Ran's slender black dragon. In that instant, Ran was sent crashing into the practice arena. Xueqi let out a sigh of relief. Thankfully, this girl's defense was quite weak. She had been seriously injured by his divine might of the 9 heavens attack. It seemed that he had won this match. Xueqi focused his attention on Prince Cheng, who was feeling a little dizzy from the spiritual pressure. Although Prince Yen had been suppressed by his aura, he still had the ability to fight. If Xueqi didn't defeat him, then he wouldn't have won. But at this moment, Xueqi suddenly frowned. He lowered his head and saw that Ran, who had been seriously injured by him, had once again flown up from the practice arena. She had flown up very quickly. How was it possible that she had been seriously injured? What's going on? Xueqi was stunned. What was going on? He had clearly sensed that Ran's aura had become extremely weak. But in the blink of an eye, she had recovered. This girl couldn't have cheated, could she? Had she eaten a healing pill while he wasn't paying attention? But none of the instructors in the spectator stand said anything, so she couldn't have cheated. What was going on? What Xueqi didn't know was that even the instructors on stage were confused. Ran, this little black dragon. How had she instantly recovered from her serious injuries? That was impossible. What kind of technique had she used? No one knew that Ran had cultivated a high-tier origin skill, the Dark Dragon Filth Mastery. This draconic technique allowed a dragon-type martial artist's body to be like an unending stream of water. Even if they were severely injured, they could recover in an extremely short amount of time. This was the power of a high-tier origin skill. Most importantly, All of this was due to the changes in Ran Ran's body. Even the Dragon Emperor, who was much stronger than her, could not see the specific changes in her body, so they did not know what she had done. But no matter what, it was impossible for him to have cheated by consuming healing pills, because if he had consumed pills, the teachers would have been able to tell easily. So the trial continued. When Ran Ran flew up again, the void dragon raising the heavens break erupted once again. If she hadn't met Kong Shinmu and learned the void dragon raising heavenly break, her original attacks wouldn't have been able to break through Xueqi's defenses. But now, the peak of the heaven rank void dragon sky raising break, the origin source dragon martial skill's explosive power had almost reached the limit. As soon as the dark dragon filth controlling technique allowed her to quickly recover, she immediately began to counterattack. Xueqi didn't even have time to react before the golden barrier covering his body was struck by the 6 streaks of black light, causing it to tremble violently. Even though Ran Ran's attack was unable to break through Xueqi's defenses, it was obvious that Ran Ran still had the strength to fight. This battle was far from over. Powerful. Prince Yen stood to the side, almost on the verge of tears. Ran Ran was too powerful. If Prince Yen had taken Xueqi's attack head-on, he would have been severely injured even if he hadn't died. At the very least, he wouldn't have had the strength to continue fighting. However, Ran Ran had actually exploded into the air and launched a counterattack. It didn't seem like there was anything wrong with her at all. It was as if she had put on an act for everyone to see. I don't believe it. When Xueqi saw this, he let out a fierce yell. A wave of golden light exploded forth, shooting towards Ran Ran once again. Ran Ran's defensive technique was very simple. It was still a layer of black barrier. It was a grade 2 defensive dragon martial technique. Faced with Xueqi's attack, it obviously couldn't withstand it and immediately shattered. Unsurprisingly, Ran Ran was once again severely injured by Xueqi. However, before anyone could react, she actually flew up and launched another attack towards Xueqi. Xueqi was going crazy. After a few attacks, he was almost out of energy. Even the side effects of the 9 Heavens' immortal might were about to kick in. In the end, after attacking Ran Ran a few times, Ran Ran was actually completely unscathed. Not only was she uninjured, most importantly, Ran Ran didn't seem to have expended much of her energy. She was still at her peak condition. The fact that Ran Ran was able to hold on until now despite being continuously injured and attacked continuously was completely beyond what an ordinary dragon martial artist could do. This girl must have some secrets. Xueqi couldn't help but think of this. To be honest, he couldn't hold on for much longer. Especially after attacking Ran Ran twice in a row and seeing that Ran Ran was fine, Prince Cheng had also somewhat adapted to the mental pressure of the Dragon Emperor. At this moment, he also began to attack. The effect of the 9 Heavens' immortal might was only temporary. It couldn't last for too long. When Ran Ran and Prince Cheng recovered, Xueqi really couldn't hold on any longer. As the effect of his 9 Heavens' celestial might became weaker and weaker, Ran Ran recovered quickly for the 4th time after he had severely injured Ran Ran 4 times. She attacked him together with Prince Ji. At this moment, Xueqi's golden defense was finally broken. Not only that, Xueqi's energy was almost completely depleted. The 9 Heavens' immortal might had consumed too much of his energy, but it didn't have much of an effect. This made surrendering the next best option for him. Although I'm very unwilling, but I admit defeat. In the end, Xueqi helplessly lowered his head to reality. There was no way he could fight. He had used all his energy on Ran Ran, but he still couldn't kill Ran Ran. Instead, she was still alive and kicking. How could he fight? His opponent had such a terrifying and mysterious ability. How could he fight? After surrendering, Xueqi didn't have the face to stay any longer. He turned and left. This time he had really lost face. In reality, things didn't go as he thought. Everyone's attention was now on Ran Ran. On the contrary, not many people were concerned about Xueqi. Without a doubt, the key to Xueqi's surrendering this time was Ran Ran. Prince Cheng was a complete bystander. He had used a little bit of energy and won inexplicably. That female dragon warrior could actually recover extremely quickly in battle. Not only could she recover from her injuries, but she could also recover her energy. This ability was simply heaven-defying. Many people guessed that her innate ability was some rare heaven-defying ability. Some people also wondered if she had cultivated some powerful dragon martial technique. However, there weren't many such guesses. Chapter 4282. The Genius Trial came to an end very quickly. Unlike the previous years, the Genius Trial this time was exceptionally exciting. The key was the appearance of Ran Ran. She almost single-handedly defeated Xueqi, a student of Donghuang Yongwu College. This made everyone present remember this young girl. Of course, it was almost impossible for them to see Ran Ran again. After becoming a student of Donghuang Yongwu College, they were in a completely different world from the others. Donghuang Yongwu College. Ran Ran and Prince Cheng joined Donghuang Yongwu College and became students of Yaoguang District. There was no grand welcome ceremony. After all, few of the dragon martial artists who passed the Genius Trial were talented. Of course, there were some strong martial artists who were lucky, but not many. When the two of them joined Donghuang Yongwu College, only 2 tutors came to choose them. At that time, Kong Xinmu was not present. However, it was said that the 2 tutors wanted to take Ran Ran as their disciple and almost fought over her. In the end, Ran Ran followed a female tutor, while Prince Cheng followed a male tutor. That male tutor did not manage to get Ran Ran, so Prince Cheng would probably suffer if he followed him. After all, whenever he saw Prince Cheng, he would think of Ran Ran who had performed extremely well in the battle. In comparison, Prince Cheng was like a salted fish. Therefore these days, Liang Luo was suffering and happy at the same time. He was happy because he had joined Donghuang Yongwu College. From now on, he would be a higher existence. Not to mention other things, he would definitely have more cultivation resources. Even if he was the prince of a dragon emperor kingdom, the cultivation resources he received could not be compared to those in Donghuang Yongwu College. The main reason was the energy of the dragon mark. An ordinary student in Donghuang Yongwu College could obtain more dragon mark energy than a dragon emperor kingdom, even if he was just a student in Yaoguang District. As long as he entered Donghuang Yongwu College, reaching the level of the dragon emperor kingdom was almost 100%. It just depended on how long it would take. According to the average level of Donghuang Yongwu College, students could basically step into the level of the Dragon Emperor in 20 to 30 years. This was much faster than in the outside world. Originally, if Liang Luo continued to develop in his own country, he would need about 50 years to reach the level of the Dragon Emperor. Joining the Eastern Emperor Dragon Martial Academy had shortened the time by half. It could be seen how many benefits there were in joining the Eastern Emperor Dragon Martial Academy. After that, Ran Ran and Liang Luo's mentor brought them to their respective independent palaces. Of course, these 2 palaces were located in the Yaoguang district. They had just entered Donghuang Yongwu College, so they must be students in the Yaoguang district. If they wanted to go to the area with more dragon mark energy, they could only pass the annual competition. From now on, Ran Ran and Liang Luo were considered students of Donghuang Yongwu College. In Donghuang Yongwu College, the tutors did not play a big role, but if there were problems in cultivation, they could ask the tutors. The tutors themselves were also cultivating, constantly making progress towards the level of the super dragon god. Therefore, they could not guide the students at any time. They would only appear when the students encountered difficulties in cultivation or danger. However, even if the students were in danger, they would only help 3 times. Through the East Emperor Seal, there were 3 opportunities to summon the tutor to their side. After 3 times, the space power contained in the East Emperor Seal would disappear. If they were in danger again, the tutor would not be able to help even if he wanted to. To the other Donghuang Yongwu College students, the addition of Ran Ran and Liang Luo was not a big deal. In fact, many students did not even care about the situation of the Genius Trial. They only heard that a genius girl had joined Donghuang Yongwu College. After hearing it, they only replied with an "oh." To the students of Donghuang Yongwu College, each of them was in a stage of rapid improvement. They did not even have time to do training missions, so where would they find the time to pay attention to other things? However, only a few people knew that the 2 students who had joined Donghuang Yongwu College this time were on good terms with Kong Xinmu. Needless to say, Ran Ran. As for Liang Luo, because Ran Ran dragged him to join Donghuang Yongwu College, he was very grateful to Kong Xinmu. "Boss Jiang, I'll have to rely on you to protect me from now on." Liang Luo said seriously as he took the initiative to visit Kong Shinmu's palace. Kong Shinmu thought it was strange at first. This guy was a prince of the Dragon Emperor Kingdom, right? How could he be so shameless? However, Kong Shinmu soon understood why this guy was currying favor with him. Not long after Liang Luo arrived, Chu Ye's voice came from outside the palace. Brother Jiang, I heard that Liang Luo came to your place? Brother Jiang, ask him to come out for a while. I have something to discuss with that little brother about life. No wonder, so it was his enemy who had come looking for him. Kong Shinmu glanced at Liang Luo, who was hiding behind him, and did not know whether to laugh or cry. This guy, he coughed and said calmly to the outside of the palace. Xueqi, I also want to talk to you about life. I heard that you had feelings for Ran Ran during the trial? As soon as he said this, Chu Ye's voice froze. After a while, he replied embarrassedly, I suddenly remembered that I have something to do, so I'll leave first. We can talk about life in the future. But Liang Luo, you must come and talk to your brother Chu when you have time. Let brother Chu teach you some manners, understand? After saying this, Chu Yi left the place as if he was fleeing. What a joke! Kong Shinmu wanted to talk to him about life. How could he beat Kong Shinmu? It was better to stay away from this kind of tough guy. Chu Yi was a little angry. He did not expect that Liang Luo would find such a strong backer as soon as he entered the academy. When I'm stronger than that Kong Shinmu, I'll definitely beat him up. Chu Yi thought bitterly as he quickly left Kong Shinmu's palace. Not long after, Ran Ran also came to Kong Shinmu's place. At this point, the two of them could finally go through thick and thin together. Having familiar people to cooperate with on a mission would obviously increase the efficiency by a lot. In addition, there was also Liang Luo, the errand boy. But to be honest, Kong Shinmu did not really want to bring this guy along. After all, if he brought him along, he would still get a portion of the experience points, and his contribution would definitely not be 1/3. Liang Luo, you've just arrived at Donghuang Yanggu College, so you should familiarize yourself with the academy. I won't disturb you anymore. Kong Shinmu thought for a moment and said directly to him. Okay, thank you for your help, Boss Jiang. I'll take my leave first. Liang Luo looked ambiguously at Kong Shinmu, then at Ran Ran, and turned to leave. He was very happy now. It was obvious that Chu Yi was very afraid of Kong Shinmu, which meant that Kong Shinmu was stronger than Chu Yi. He had just arrived at Donghuang Yanggu College, and he had already found such a powerful person. It was too comfortable. Chapter 4283. Kong Shinmu first brought Ran Ran to the experience stone tablet to have a look. If there was a suitable experience mission for them to do together, then they would do it together. It would definitely be more efficient. However, if there was no suitable one, he would not delay Ran Ran's cultivation. She had just entered Donghuang Yanggu College, so it was better to let her absorb some Dragon Mark energy first. Although Ran Ran had Dragon King's inherited blood essence, she had just stepped into Dragon King's level and had not improved much. In the absence of a suitable experience mission, the most important thing for her now was to absorb the Dragon Mark energy and improve the level of Dragon King's blood essence. Kong Shinmu was almost the same, however. Improving the level of Dragon King's blood essence didn't increase his strength much, so Kong Shinmu put this matter aside. The key was that Kong Shinmu could use his devouring power to devour the Dragon Mark energy, and his efficiency was much faster than others. In this case, he was really not in a hurry to improve the Dragon God's blood essence. However, after walking around the experience stone tablet, he found that there were many experience missions, but none of them were suitable for them to do together. The main reason was that they were all students in the Alcade district, so the difficulty of the experience missions they could accept was limited. For Kong Shinmu, it was destined to be easy to complete. Therefore, the reward of experience points was naturally not much, and Kong Shinmu didn't care much about it. Since that was the case, he could only leave first and cultivate for a while. Experience missions wouldn't be updated in a short period of time, so he had to wait for at least a few days. Kong Shinmu returned to his palace. Ran Ran followed him to his palace. This girl actually didn't want to go back to her own palace, and planned to stay at Kong Shinmu's place. Kong Shinmu didn't say anything. It was good to cultivate together, and if there were any problems, they could communicate with each other. If there were no accidents, the two of them cultivated in 2 different rooms in the palace. Kong Shinmu hadn't absorbed the energy of the dragon mark for a long time. Although there was a little girl next door, if he controlled his devouring power, absorbing the dragon mark's energy wouldn't cause too much of a commotion. It was fine as long as he didn't crazily absorb it. After a period of time, Kong Shinmu began to absorb the energy of the dragon mark. Ever since his divine dragon blood essence reached the level of Dragon King, it had not improved much. Even now, it was still at the level of Dragon King. As for Xueqi and the others, their Dragon King level inherited blood essence had basically reached the peak of the first level. There was a bottleneck for every 10% increase in blood essence. Therefore, it was basically leveling up according to the 10 levels. The instructors were all Dragon Emperor level 5 and above. The Dragon Emperors outside were basically all below the 5th level. For example, Dragon Emperor Yen was only at the peak of the first level, unable to break through. On one hand, the dragon mark did not have enough energy. On the other hand, his talent was limited. There was nothing he could do about it. If he did not have enough talent, he could break through if he had enough dragon mark energy. However, that condition was almost impossible for the Yen Dragon Emperor to fulfill. Of course, compared to the level of the divine dragon blood essence, the effect of raising one level was too weak. For example, Dragon Emperor Yen, even if he broke through to the second level of Dragon Emperor blood essence, his strength would not change much. At most, he would be slightly stronger. Therefore, Kong Shinmu would not consider anything for Dragon Emperor Yen. Others' cultivation depended on themselves. Kong Shinmu himself only had Dragon King. Originally, when he was at the level of Dragon King, he had absorbed some of the Dragon Mark's energy and improved a lot. However, when he returned to Dragon Emperor Yen last time, Kong Shinmu had transferred a lot of Dragon Mark's energy to Shi Yutong. There was not much Dragon Mark's energy left in his body. I have been busy improving my strength. I should absorb more of this Dragon Mark's energy. I wonder how fast Ran Ran is absorbing the Dragon Mark's energy? With her talent, it shouldn't be too slow. But if she absorbs too slowly, I can help. Kong Shinmu thought to himself and quickly shook his head. He would wait for Ran Ran to absorb the Dragon Mark's energy and see the effect. He began to absorb the Dragon Mark's energy. Although he did not use much devouring power, his efficiency in absorbing the Dragon Mark's energy was much higher than that of ordinary dragon warriors. At least 2 or 3 times faster. Therefore, absorbing the Dragon Mark's energy for 1 day was equivalent to others absorbing for 2 or 3 days. If he absorbed for 1 month, it was equivalent to others absorbing for 2 or 3 months. Therefore, he only needed to use 1/3 of the time to absorb the Dragon Mark's energy. He could absorb faster, but if he did, the flow of Dragon Mark's energy around him would easily arouse suspicion. If he was not in a hurry, there was no need to rush. For the next 2 months, Kong Shinmu had been absorbing the Dragon Mark's energy. During this period, he also took Ran Ran to see the experience stone steel. Unfortunately, there were no good experience missions to take on, so he did not go out. The next academy tournament will begin in about 3 months. Kong Shinmu thought to himself. At this time, he had been absorbing the Dragon Mark's energy for 2 months, which was equivalent to an ordinary dragon warrior absorbing for half a year. His Dragon King level blood essence had finally broken through twice and reached the 3rd level. During these 2 breakthroughs, Kong Shinmu almost did not encounter any bottlenecks. When the devouring power absorbed enough Dragon Mark's energy, the grade of his divine dragon blood essence would naturally improve. I wonder when I will encounter a bottleneck? Kong Shinmu was a little puzzled. Every dragon warrior encountered a different level of bottleneck. It depended on talent and luck. Some dragon warriors had excellent luck and talent, and almost all the way to the level of Dragon Emperor, they would not encounter any bottlenecks. And some dragon warriors, not to mention the Dragon King level, even when they were at the Sky Dragon level, they would encounter bottlenecks. However, because the Sky Dragon level was not divided into Dragon King and Dragon Emperor levels, the bottlenecks in the Sky Dragon level were not fixed. It was a good thing that Kong Shinmu did not encounter any bottlenecks. Similarly, Ran Ran did not encounter any bottlenecks either. After these 2 months of cultivation, she directly rushed to the 2nd level of Dragon King blood essence. Brother Jiang, how can you absorb so fast? I am only at the 2nd level, and you are already at the 3rd level. Ran Ran was very depressed about this. It was too unfair. Was Kong Shinmu better than her in everything? How could she keep up with Kong Shinmu's pace in the future? Come to my room tonight. Kong Shinmu thought about it and said this to Ran Ran. That night, Kong Shinmu used the devouring power to transfer some of the Dragon Mark's energy to Ran Ran. This speed was more than 100 times faster than Ran Ran's own cultivation. Of course, the Dragon Mark's energy in Kong Shinmu's body was also limited. Soon, he transferred the Dragon Mark's energy that exceeded the third level of Dragon King to Ran Ran. And Ran Ran in one night reached the peak of the second level of Dragon King blood essence. Chapter 4284. Unfortunately, this kind of transmission could not be carried out forever. Kong Shinmu also needed time to devour the energy of the Dragon Mark. The Dragon Mark energy consumed to transmit to Ran Ran that night was equivalent to what he had absorbed for half a month. Of course, the Dragon Mark energy he absorbed for half a month was equivalent to the amount others absorbed for about 2 months. Therefore, he used his own trial to transmit to Ran Ran so that their overall strength could be improved faster. In this way, they could go on some more difficult training missions together. Soon, 3 months had passed since Ran Ran joined Donghuang Yonggu College. Her Dragon King inheritance blood essence finally broke through to the third level. Like Kong Shinmu, she did not encounter any bottlenecks in the first 2 levels. At the same time, she did not improve much in other aspects. Kong Shinmu and her Dragon King inheritance blood essence directly broke through to the third level. Their progress was not small, but the increase in strength was not particularly obvious. It only increased their combat strength by about 30%. The strength of their talent was 30% stronger than before. In many cases, it did not affect the outcome of the battle. This year's school competition is coming. It's time to let Ran Ran improve her strength. Kong Shinmu thought to himself. Therefore, even if there were some less efficient training missions, he had to take them with Ran Ran and complete them. Some training missions were slightly more difficult and rewarded slightly more, but they were basically the type that required many people to search, like the mission in the underground karst cave. For Kong Shinmu, this kind of mission was not efficient enough to complete. Instead, it was easy to fail because he could not find the target. Among the missions that students in the Alcade district could accept, there were many solo training missions that Ran Ran could complete alone. Of course, she could not choose anymore. There were still more than 2 months left. She would improve as much as she could. Kong Shinmu had reached the final sprint stage. If it weren't for the fact that he wanted to deceive others and prevent the Divine Dragon's blood essence from improving too quickly in the future, Kong Shinmu didn't even bother to absorb the Dragon Mark's energy. In any case, in the Alcade district, absorbing the Dragon Mark's energy was too slow and inefficient. However, if Kong Shinmu broke through too quickly in the future, it would be too eye-catching, which was not very appropriate. Therefore, before this academy competition, he had to improve a little first. Next, it was time for the experience mission. If there was a suitable experience mission, Kong Shinmu would go with Ran Ran. Otherwise, they would split up and complete some experience missions to accumulate experience points. Then, he would use these experience points to exchange for cultivation resources and increase his strength. Right now, Kong Shinmu's cultivation had been stuck at the 4th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm for a long time. After such a long time, his strength had finally accumulated enough strength. As long as he improved a step further, he would be able to break through to the 5th level of the Nirvana Tribulation stage. Once he broke through, Kong Shinmu's strength would skyrocket. It wasn't as simple as raising the Dragon King's blood essence by 2 levels. Raising the cultivation realm by 1 level would at least increase the strength of one's talent by more than 50%. Moreover, the increase in the cultivation realm was a comprehensive improvement, which had a great impact on one's combat strength. Just a month before the academy competition, Kong Shinmu once again returned to the Yen Dragon Emperor dynasty to break through. With his current strength, defeating ordinary Nirvana beasts was a piece of cake and there was no difficulty at all. But now, he had reached the 4th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, which was the middle level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm. At this stage, it wasn't that simple to raise the cultivation realm. After defeating the first Nirvana beast, a second Nirvana beast would appear. This Nirvana beast was an extremely powerful existence. Only a cultivator of the same level with stronger combat strength could defeat it. If one only wanted to break through the cultivation realm, it would be enough to defeat a Nirvana beast and absorb its Nirvana power to increase the strength of one's Nirvana power. However, if one defeated the second Nirvana beast and absorbed its Nirvana power, the dragon martial artist's Nirvana power would become even more condensed. This kind of dragon martial artist was the strongest among those of the same level. Only a dragon martial artist who had condensed Nirvana power would possess the strongest combat strength. Breaking through from the 4th level to the 5th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm was the first opportunity to condense Nirvana power. Kong Shinmu naturally wouldn't let it go. 3 days later, he returned from the Yen Dragon Emperor dynasty. His aura was completely different from before. His Nirvana devouring power had finally condensed once. The breakthrough in his cultivation realm had caused the strength of his Nirvana energy to skyrocket by 50%. Furthermore, the Nirvana energy that had been condensed once again skyrocketed by another 50%. In other words, Jiang Shenwu's current strength had doubled compared to before his breakthrough. Breaking through once was equivalent to an ordinary dragon martial artist breaking through twice. Condensing Nirvana energy was not something that could be done so easily. The second Nirvana beast wouldn't appear if one wasn't strong enough. It mainly depended on the time it took to defeat the first Nirvana beast. As long as the speed of defeating the first Nirvana beast was fast enough, the second Nirvana beast would appear. The strength of this second Nirvana beast came from the void. No one knew where it came from, but its strength was extremely terrifying. Compared to Kong Shinmu, the strength of the second Nirvana beast that he killed was comparable to the 7th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, or even the 8th level of the Dragon King's Blood Essence. Although it wasn't too difficult for Kong Shinmu to deal with it, it was almost an invincible existence for others. One must know that this was only a beast that had broken through to the 4th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm. Currently, among the students of Donghuang Yanggu College in the Alcade District, no matter who it was, it wouldn't be a problem for them to defeat the beast that Kong Shinmu had just defeated. But one must know that among the students in the Alcade District, who was still at the 4th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, they were at least at the 6th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, and at most they were at the 7th or 8th level. When they broke through, the strength of the second Nirvana beast that appeared was at least at the Rebirth Tribulation Realm. It wasn't on the same level. Therefore, even in Donghuang Yanggu College, dragon martial artists that could condense Nirvana power were extremely rare. Although Kong Shinmu was only at the 5th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, in the Alcade District, no one was his match. Even if all the students in the Alcade District attacked him together, he wouldn't be afraid. Because he was a body-refining dragon martial artist. As long as the opponent's attack couldn't break through his defense, what was there for him to be afraid of? At this moment, Kong Shinmu was full of confidence in himself. In the upcoming academy competition, he had to at least defeat the students of Yuhing District and head to Yuhing District to cultivate. If possible, he would also challenge the students of Migres District and try to head to Migres District. Chapter 4285. There was still about a month before the academy tournament. All the students of Donghuang Yanggu College were preparing for the competition, including Emperor Qin, who was defeated by Yu Tiangshang from the Tianshu district last year. After a year of hiding his strength, he would definitely challenge others and return to the Tianshu district. Of course, he would not challenge Yu Tiangshang. His chances of winning would be too low. In order to cultivate fast enough, he would challenge the other two in the Tianshu district. But this level of things had little to do with Kong Shinmu. Even if it was not the most core Tianshu district, even if it was the slightly more peripheral Tianqian district and Tianji district, most of the students who could cultivate there were Dragon Emperor level of inherited blood essence. Although the difference between 1 or 2 levels of Dragon King's blood essence was not big, once he broke through and transformed into a Dragon Emperor, the difference would be big. In Donghuang Yanggu College, it was rare for a Dragon Emperor to be defeated by a Dragon King. Everyone was gearing up for the school competition. And Kong Shinmu and Ran Ran continued to seize the time to improve. After breaking through to the 5th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, Kong Shinmu's combat power skyrocketed. There was no challenge for him to go to the Alcade district again. But he still had to get the experience points, and no one came to ask him to do the task now. Although he had completed a mission with Luo Han and Su Qin before, they did not feel that Kong Shinmu was too strong at that time. Many of the Yuhing district's missions required direct combat power, so they did not ask Kong Shinmu to go with them. Kong Shinmu did not think too much about it. He was originally in the Alcade district. Last time he followed the other party, he had already gained a lot of experience points. Now he felt too embarrassed to go with them again. Anyway, There was still a month before the school competition. After the competition, he would improve himself. At that time, there would be a lot more missions for him to choose from. During the last month of preparation, Kong Shinmu did not cultivate anything else. He just continued to consolidate his Chaos Dragon body. He had used up all the experience points he had earned recently to break through to the 5th level. It was impossible for Kong Shinmu to improve too much in a month. So, Kong Shinmu mainly rested and consolidated his Chaos Dragon body. The consolidation of the Chaotic Dragon body increased the defense of his Divine Dragon body by a lot. As Kong Shinmu's Nirvana force had increased in intensity, the might of his various dragon martial techniques had also increased. During this period of time, he had to familiarize himself with it, in case he lost the battle due to poor control. Of course, the key was, Kong Shinmu recalled the last time he challenged Lin Yuji, and he might not have lost. In the end, the Dean, Zhuo Xiaofeng, had secretly helped Lin Yuji improve, which led to his defeat. Will Dean Zhuo Xiaofeng make a move this time? Kong Shinmu was deep in thought. Obviously, Zhuo Xiaofeng had designs on Yu Tianchong, and Yu Tianchong was quite close to Kong Shinmu. That was why Zhuo Xiaofeng targeted Kong Shinmu. However, in the past year, Yu Tianchong had not looked for Kong Shinmu much. Perhaps it was because of this. If Zhuo Xiaofeng really had designs on Kong Shinmu, then Kong Shinmu would not be able to escape. Why did they let such a person become the dean? Kong Shinmu could not figure it out. This guy was too disgusting. As a super divine dragon, he had secretly arranged for an insignificant dragon king, a student who had just entered Donghuang Yongwu College. His luck was really bad. He had just entered Donghuang Yongwu College, and he had encountered a change of dean. It was said that the original dean was very good to the students. In any case, he had no way to fight against an existence like the super divine dragon, nor could he get in touch with people of a higher level than Zhuo Xiaofeng. It would be great if I could meet the Dragon of Tribulation and report what Zhuo Xiaofeng had done. Unfortunately, Kong Shinmu was just thinking about it. The Dragon of Tribulation was a real supreme divine dragon. It was said that it had something to do with the establishment of Donghuang Yongwu College. The entire Donghuang Yongwu College was used by the Dragon of Tribulation to train the super divine dragon. Kong Shinmu was just an insignificant dragon king now. It was almost impossible for him to meet the Dragon of Tribulation. If Zhuo Xiaofeng still targets me, then there's nothing I can do. Kong Shinmu shook his head. If he relied on his strength, he could at least enter Yuhing District in this college competition. However, if Zhuo Xiaofeng targeted him, it would be hard to say what the result would be. Kong Shinmu could not deal with this matter now. If something similar happened again, he might have to find another way out. If he continued to stay in Donghuang Yongwu College, not only would he not be able to stand out in the competition, his life would also be in danger. A month later, the college competition was finally about to begin. The students of Donghuang Yongwu College were all gearing up to show their skills. The college competition was not just a simple competition. It was related to the allocation of resources for the next year. The energy in the college's dragon mark was limited. The more central the area, the richer the dragon mark's energy was. If one cultivated there, the quality of the divine dragon's blood would increase faster. All the students wanted to go to the central area to cultivate. However, the more central the area, the fewer people could be accommodated. Therefore, the allocation of resources could only be decided by strength. Many students could only cultivate in the Yaoguang district after joining Donghuang Yongwu College for decades. This meant that it was very difficult to get more resources. Yu Tiansheng still did not come to Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu also put her at the back of his mind. It was impossible for him to have any interaction with Yu Tiansheng now. He even had to worry about Dean Zhuo Xiaofeng's revenge. On the day of the college competition, Kong Shinmu went to the martial arts forum with Ran Ran, Qin Fengyu, and Lu Hua. A year has passed unknowingly. Qin Fengyu was a little emotional. Kong Shinmu, you've been in the college for more than a year. You've made great progress, much faster than we did back then. Lu Hua smiled and asked Kong Shinmu, Shinwu, which cultivation area do you think you can enter this year? They did not know much about Kong Shinmu's strength. They only knew that Kong Shinmu had broken through to the 5th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm. Ordinary 5th level Nirvana Tribulation Realm students could forget about leaving the Yaoguang district. They could only stay there obediently. It was only because Lu Hua was confident in Jiang Shenwu, and knew that the latter's strength far surpassed his own cultivation that she would ask such a question. Kong Xinmu shook his head and said, I don't know either. I plan to challenge the seniors in the Yuhing district first. In the college competition, each person only had one chance to challenge. He planned to observe the situation first, mainly to see how strong the students in the Migres district were. Yao Guang was 7th. Mizar was 6th. Yuheng was 5th. Migres was 4th. Chapter 4286. Kong Xinmu and the others arrived at the martial arts plaza where the academy competition was being held. Many people glanced at Ran Ran. After all, she was a new face and had never appeared before. Apparently, she was a student who had entered through the genius trials. Elder Jiang, we finally meet again. At this moment, a joyful voice rang out. Immediately after, a figure could be seen rushing over from afar. Not long after, that figure stood before Jiang Shenwu. This person was Prince Liang Liang, who had joined Donghuang Yanggu College with Ran Ran. In the past few months, this kid had been busy cultivating and completing missions everywhere. He was extremely diligent. After all, he had not entered Donghuang Yanggu College through the proper channels, so he worked even harder than the others. There were even some missions that he could not complete alone, and he had to complete them even if he had to risk his life. He had been seriously injured several times. The results of this kind of hard work were quite shocking. In such a short period of time, this person had broken through a tier, and apparently had even exchanged for a dragon origin martial technique to cultivate. Although it was only a low-tier origin martial technique, to be able to achieve this in such a short period of time was not a simple matter. This kid would not stay within Donghuang Yanggu College, mainly because he was afraid that Xueqi would make trouble for him. But this annual academy competition was something he had to watch. After all, this was related to whether or not he would be able to obtain more Dragon Mark energy in the future to increase the grade of his divine dragon blood essence. Students who joined Donghuang Yanggu College usually had two paths. One was to go out less, cultivate more, and absorb more Dragon Mark energy to increase the grade of the divine dragon so that they could reach the level of the Dragon Emperor as quickly as possible. This type of Dragon Warrior students was generally weaker in battle. Before they reached the level of the Dragon Emperor, they could only cultivate in the Alcade district. Those with good talent could reach that level in a few years. Even those with poor talent could only do so in 20 or 30 years. Then, when they reached the level of the Dragon Emperor, their battle strength would increase greatly, and they would be able to rush to the more advanced districts to cultivate. If the outermost Alcade district's Dragon Mark energy density was 100, then the 6th district's Mizar district's Dragon Mark energy density was 120. The 5th region, the Yuhing region, had a density of 140, and the Migres region had a density of 170. He had to reach at least the first 3 regions for the Dragon Mark's energy to be twice as rich as the Alcade region. This was also the reason why many dragon martial artists were too lazy to increase their combat strength in the early stages. Normal students, no matter how talented they were, would have to constantly complete missions to exchange for mid-tier origin skills or even high-tier origin skills. It would take them at least 10 years. This was the only way he could cultivate in the more advanced areas before the divine dragon blood reached the level of the Dragon Emperor. However, if that was the case, they might as well break through to the Dragon Emperor first, and then go on the training mission. It would be much more efficient. Moreover, it didn't mean that these students who focused on absorbing the Dragon Mark's energy didn't have any combat strength. They didn't have the possibility of challenging the deeper regions. Although they didn't complete many training missions, when they cultivated normally, their cultivation base would increase. Even if they relied on natural growth and didn't rely on natural treasures, they could still break through. At most, they would break through once every few years. That way, they would increase the quality of the divine dragon blood essence, and their strength would also increase. However, they wouldn't be as extreme as Kong Xinmu and the others. As for Kong Xinmu, he was a different type. Yu Tianchong and Lin Yuji were the same. They were the same as Kong Xinmu, choosing to increase their own strength first, and then wait until they reached the deeper regions to cultivate before slowly absorbing the Dragon Mark's energy and increasing the quality of the divine dragon blood essence. It was hard to say which of the two paths was stronger or weaker. But generally speaking, those who chose the same path as Kong Xinmu were genius dragon martial artists. They were all geniuses who were confident that they could increase their combat strength explosively in a short period of time, and then head to the deeper regions to cultivate. Originally, none of the students of Donghuang Yonggu College were mediocre. But those who chose this path were obviously geniuses who were more talented than ordinary geniuses. Without enough talent, choosing this path was courting death. Not only would their combat strength not increase, but they also wouldn't be able to go to the deeper regions to cultivate. Even the quality of the divine dragon blood essence would fall behind. One should know that while absorbing the dragon mark's energy, one's cultivation base could increase. But when completing the training missions, one couldn't absorb the dragon mark's energy. At this moment, Kong Xinmu looked at Liang Luo, who was in front of him, with mixed feelings. This guy worshipped him so much that he chose the same path as him when he entered. He actually chose to do training missions instead of absorbing the dragon mark's energy and increasing the quality of the divine dragon blood essence. Fine, let him do as he pleases. Kong Xinmu shook his head. No matter what others chose, it was their business. He only hoped that Liang Luo wouldn't regret it. But looking at his drive, he was also more hardworking than the other students. In the future, it shouldn't be difficult for him to rise to the middle level of Donghuang Yonggu College. But he didn't know where the upper limit was. At least in Kong Xinmu's opinion, he, Ran, Yu Tianchong, Lin Yuji, and the others were likely to become Super Shinran students in the future. As for Liang Luo, even if he couldn't become a Super Shinran, if he could join Donghuang Yonggu College and return to Great Liang Dragon Country in the future, he could also make Great Liang Dragon Country stronger. There was no doubt about it. Kong Xinmu nodded at Liang Luo and didn't say anything. He looked toward the martial arts symposium. Soon, he saw that familiar figure again. Zhua Xiaofeng. That long-haired man once again descended on Donghuang Yonggu College. Usually, Zhua Xiaofeng wouldn't appear at all. Only at this time and on some special days would he appear in front of the students. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but Kong Xinmu felt that after Zhua Xiaofeng appeared, his eyes had swept over him several times. Could it be that this guy still has ideas about me? Kong Xinmu thought to himself, feeling a little nervous. If he was targeted by Zhua Xiaofeng again, it wouldn't be good. Today, Zhua Xiaofeng didn't waste any more words. After announcing the start of this year's academy competition, the first to go up was Emperor Qin. Last year, Emperor Qin was defeated by Yu Tianchong and fell to the 2nd Tianxian district to cultivate. This year, he made a comeback because he wanted to return to the Heavenly Center district. As everyone expected, Emperor Qin didn't choose to challenge Yu Tianchong. Instead, he challenged another person in the Heavenly Center district. Those who could cultivate in the Heavenly Center district were the top 3 super students in the entire Donghuang Yonggu College. They were basically all experts who had inherited the essence blood of the Dragon Emperor, and had cultivated to the 4th or even the 5th level. And most importantly, their combat power was extremely strong. Almost everyone knew high-tier origin skills, and they had cultivated them to an extremely high level. If Kong Xinmu were to fight with such an opponent, he would probably be killed in a single exchange. Chapter 4287. In the end, Emperor Qin won. Before Yu Tianshang's rise, Emperor Qin was the top student of Donghuang Yonggu College. Even if he was defeated by Yu Tianshang for a year, he could still enter the Divine Center District the next year. However, he still didn't dare to challenge Yu Tianshang this year, so his momentum fell. It would be difficult for him to surpass Yu Tianshang in the future. Kong Xinmu and the others came to watch the battle today, and they gained a lot. And today was not the only battle between the Jade District and the Divine Center District. There were 3 from the Divine Center District and 7 from the Jade District. Among the 7 people, apart from Emperor Qin who succeeded in his challenge, the other 3 people all stood out to challenge once. Naturally, the one they challenged was the other person apart from Yu Tianshang and Emperor Qin, Lu Xingshu. This person was not weak. He was challenged by 3 people in a row and won all of them with ease. This was because Zhua Xiaofeng would increase his strength by 20% every time he accepted a challenge. After 3 consecutive defeats, no one challenged him anymore. As for Yu Tianshang and Emperor Qin, who would have the time to challenge them? There was no chance of winning at all, so there was no need to waste time. After 4 battles, today's challenges were over. In general, for Kong Xinmu, he gained a lot from watching these 4 battles. After all, it was a battle at the level of the Dragon Emperor. The main thing was that the two sides were evenly matched. There was a gap, but they were still at the same level, so the battles were quite fierce. Kong Shinmu gained a lot from using the original dragon technique, the power of nirvana, and the power of reincarnation. Kong Shinmu watched the battles every day and didn't miss a single one. On the second day, 9 students from the Jade District challenged 7 students from the Jade District. There were a total of 7 battles, which were more intense than the challenge between the Jade District and the Divine Center District. 2 of the challenges were successful, and 2 students from the Jade District successfully entered the Jade District to cultivate. Although the gap between the latter districts was not big, the gap between the Dragon Mark energy of the first 3 districts was quite large, even calculated in multiples. The concentration of Dragon Mark energy in the first place was at least 3 times that of the Tianxian district. And the Merak district was twice the size of the Fekta district. After entering the Fekta zone, the difference wasn't that great. The deeper they went, the denseness of the Dragon Mark's energy only increased by 20 to 30%. I have to enter the Fekta zone as soon as possible. Kong Shinmu thought. Dubhe, Merak, and Fekta were the 3 inner regions where the true Dragon Mark energy was concentrated. It could even be said that these 3 areas were the core areas of Donghuang Yongwu College. The other areas were only using the Dragon Mark energy that leaked from these 3 areas. One could well imagine how great the gap between them was. The Dubhe, Merak, and Fekta regions could accommodate 19 people in total. 3 from the Dubhe district, 7 from the Merak district, and 9 from the Fekta district. In other words, Kong Shinmu had to reach the top 19 among the hundreds of Donghuang Yongwu College students. And to achieve this, he had to have the blood essence of the divine dragon at the level of the Dragon Emperor. Otherwise, he wouldn't be a match for those students. Among those students, there were even reincarnation tribulations realm cultivators, and the quality of the divine dragon's blood essence was basically at the 2nd or 3rd level. Kong Shinmu couldn't compare to their combat strength. Therefore, the battle between the Migres district and the Fekta district was the most important thing for Kong Shinmu. He wanted to know how strong the students of the Migres district were. Then, when the Migres district challenged the Fekta district, Kong Shinmu found that there was a big gap between the students of the Migres district and the Fekta district. The strong ones of the Migres district could challenge the Fekta district, and one of them even won and entered the Fekta district to cultivate. But the weak ones of the Migres district were not only far behind the students of the Fekta district, but also had to worry about being challenged by the students of the Yuhing district. There were a total of 15 people in the Migres district, and none of them was weak. But the weakest among them was an expert at the level of the Dragon Emperor, and his cultivation had reached the peak of the Nirvana Tribulation realm. This level caused Kong Shinmu to ponder. Could he deal with them? The answer was no. The gap between the Dragon Emperor and the Dragon King was too big. It was no wonder that some students were willing to absorb the Dragon Mark's energy for 10 or 20 years, in order to become the Dragon Emperor as quickly as possible. If Kong Shinmu didn't become the Dragon Emperor, he would probably have to be at the same level to fight them, which was the peak of the Nirvana Tribulation realm. And the current Kong Shinmu had just stepped into the 5th level of the Nirvana Tribulation realm, and was too far away from the peak of the 9th level. In fact, Kong Shinmu's combat strength was already very strong. Many students who had joined Donghuang Yongwu College for 10 years might not be able to match up to Kong Shinmu's current combat strength. The 5th Yuhing district, after the Migres district, was the district where Luo Han and Su Qin were previously at. In fact, the average combat strength of the students in the Yuhing district was relatively strong. Among the 15 people in the Yuhing district, there were only 4 or 5 students that Kong Shinmu could possibly defeat, and 2 of them were Luo Han and Su Qin. And when Luo Han and Su Qin were on the training mission, the combat strength they displayed was definitely not inferior to the current Kong Shinmu, but their perception was slightly weaker. In fact, Kong Shinmu himself didn't know why his perception had become stronger. The Nightmare Ink Beast had been hiding around him, but he hadn't sensed it at all. It could be seen that the Nightmare Ink Beast's concealment ability was very strong. Looks like I can only challenge the Yuhing district. Kong Shinmu thought to himself. The students in the Yuhing district had already stepped into the ranks of the Dragon Emperor, but their cultivation levels weren't very high. These were all geniuses who had become Dragon Emperor at a young age, so it was normal that their cultivation levels weren't high. Basically, they were at the 7th or 8th level of the Nirvana Tribulation realm. It was just that they had inherited the essence blood of the Dragon Emperor level, so they were much stronger than the others. Kong Shinmu felt that it wasn't very safe for him to fight against opponents of this level. But below the Yuhing district, there were some Dragon King students who mainly focused on increasing their strength. They were opponents that he could challenge. These students were all at the 9th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, and their Dragon King level essence blood had only cultivated to around the 4th or 5th level. With such an opponent, Kong Shinmu felt that he could still give it a try. As for whether he could win or not, he could only fight and see. At least when the students from the Yuhing district challenged the Migres district, Kong Shinmu didn't feel that there was too much of a problem. After all, he was now at the 5th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, and had even condensed the Nirvana power once. His strength was much stronger than the dragon martial artists of the same level. The next day was the day to challenge the students from the Yuhing district. It didn't necessarily have to be the challenge in the Kaiyang district. Even the students from the Yaoguang district could challenge, but usually, very few students would do so. Only a genius like Yu Tianchong was able to cross regions to challenge experts and win. And this time, Kong Shinmu stood out and wanted to challenge the experts from the Yuhing district from the Yaoguang district. Chapter 4288. When Kong Shinmu stood out, many people were incomparably shocked. Didn't this kid just enter Donghuang Yonggu College last year? Last year he even participated in the competition and challenged Kaiyang District's Lin Yuji, but lost. This year he actually became so arrogant, and wanted to challenge Yuhang District students? But some people were shocked, and some were not surprised. Among them included Su Qin, Luo Han, and Chu Yi and the others. The students who were close to Kong Shinmu would know that in the past year, Kong Shinmu's strength had increased extremely rapidly. In a short period of time, he had already achieved an improvement that others might not be able to achieve in years. Adding on Kong Shinmu's talent, challenging Yuhang District students could also be said to be challenging himself. But Luo Han and Su Qin were somewhat nervous, not knowing who Kong Shinmu would choose as his opponent. The two of them definitely did not have the strength to challenge Migres District students. So they were still Yuhang District students. If Kong Shinmu were to challenge them, would they be able to win? After all, they had trained with Kong Shinmu before, and knew that Kong Shinmu was very skilled in sensing. They were not very clear about other things. But thinking about it, it wouldn't be too bad. I wonder what level this kid's cultivation has reached recently? They saw that Kong Shinmu had already broken through to the 5th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, and knew that if they underestimated Kong Shinmu, even if they won in the end, they would still suffer a great loss. And the facts proved that Kong Shinmu did not choose the two of them as his opponents, even though they were the two weakest in Yuhang District. After all, they had once brought Kong Shinmu along to complete a training mission, allowing him to obtain many experience points. This caused Kong Shinmu's heart to lean towards them, and naturally he would not go up to challenge them. If he won, wouldn't it cause them to fall from Yuhang District back to Yaoguang District? Even if they challenged back to Kaiyang District tomorrow, the loss wouldn't be too great, but they would still feel uncomfortable. After all, they had brought Kong Shinmu along to train before. Not only was Kong Shinmu not grateful, but he even challenged them? Although many people would not care about old friendships during the academy tournament, Kong Shinmu would not do so. I challenge Chu Qingyun. Kong Shinmu stood up and directly announced the name of the opponent he wanted to challenge. When he shouted these words, everyone's expression changed. Chu Qingyun was one of the weaker students in the Alioth region. He did not expect that he would be targeted by Kong Shinmu. When this name was shouted by Kong Shinmu, there was an uproar. Kong Shinmu even noticed from the corner of his eyes that the long-haired dean, Zhou Xiaofeng, was also looking at him with a gleam in his eyes. Looks like this guy still holds a grudge against me. Jiang Shenwu's heart skipped a beat, feeling a little cold. Come on up. Chu Qingyun was challenged, but he would not be afraid. As one of the weakest students in the Alioth region, it was normal for him to be challenged. It was just that he did not expect that Kong Shinmu would challenge him. He did not know much about Kong Shinmu. He had only heard a little about him from a friend. It seemed that this kid had some relationship with Yu Tiangshang. As for Kong Shinmu's combat strength, as a student of the Alioth region, no matter how weak he was, there was no need for him to take the initiative to pay attention to a new student of the Alcade region. But he did not expect that Kong Shinmu would dare to challenge him. This made him a little surprised, but also a little excited. This kid dares to challenge me. If I defeat him, won't I be able to communicate with Yu Tiansheng? He looked at Kong Xinmu. There was no ripple on the surface, but his heart was rippling. As for Yu Tiansheng, who among the students of the Donghuang Yanggu College did not have any thoughts. In this school tournament, they did not even see Yu Tiansheng's shadow, because no one challenged her. When Yu Tiansheng did not go on stage, she was very low-key. Although she would come to the martial arts forum, she would not appear in front of others. This made many people disappointed, including Chu Qingyun. But Chu Qingyun thought that since Kong Xinmu and Yu Tiansheng had some relationship, then Yu Tiansheng would definitely pay attention to this match, right? Paying attention to this match also meant paying attention to him, Chu Qingyun. Although it was not a big deal to pay attention to a little, it was still an honor for him to be noticed by the goddess. Kong Xinmu went on stage and did not look at the high and mighty Zhuo Xiaofeng. This Zhuo Xiaofeng would not go so far as to break the rules and stop him from challenging students of the Alioth region. At most, he would play some tricks in the battle. If it was really impossible, Kong Xinmu would not force it. After this tournament, it was time to find another way out. Apparently, on the Dragon Martial continent, there was not only one Dragon Martial Academy that cultivated divine dragons, but a total of 4. There was one in the north, south, east, and west. Previously, Kong Xinmu had investigated that the Dark Dragon Filth Mastery technique should be a high-tier origin skill from the Northern Desolate Dragon Martial Academy. This made Kong Xinmu feel that Ran Ran's background was related to the Northern Desolate Dragon Martial Academy. But according to Ran Ran's memories, at the time, her parents were being pursued. Who knew if they were being pursued by the people from the Northern Desolate Dragon Martial Academy? Thus, Kong Xinmu could not rashly bring her back to the Northern Desolate Dragon Martial Academy. Perhaps he could go to another academy? Of course, this was only a last resort. As long as there was a chance, Kong Xinmu was not willing to leave Donghuang Yanggu Academy. After all, the Dragon Emperor's empire was located in the east, and the Eastern Emperor Academy was the closest to the Dragon Emperor's empire. In addition, Kong Xinmu had many friends at Donghuang Yanggu Academy, including Chu Yi, Qin Fengyu, Lu Hua, Yu Tianchong, and Lin Yuji. Even his instructor, Chu Yueqiang, was there. Although Chu Yueqiang had not interacted with him much, she had helped him a lot. He could not forget her friendship. With so many friends at Donghuang Yanggu Academy, unless he was forced into a corner, he would not leave Donghuang Yanggu Academy. On the martial sparring plaza, Kong Xinmu shook his head. There was no point in thinking too much. Let's fight first. If he could defeat Chu Qingyun and enter the Yuhing district, there would be no need for him to leave. No matter how powerful Zhuo Xiaofeng was, he could not secretly kill him, right? He had to cultivate at Donghuang Yanggu Academy first. Kong Xinmu. After going on stage, Kong Xinmu first reported his name. I know. Chu Qingyun was expressionless. He held 2 long spear dragon weapons in each of his hands. These 2 dragon weapons were the strongest heaven-grade dragon weapons, and they were a set. Obviously, Chu Qingyun had already exchanged for these 2 long spear dragon weapons through training missions. The existence of these 2 dragon weapons allowed his combat power to completely crush ordinary dragon martial artists of the same level. Chu Qingyun, Dragon King's Divine Dragon Blood Essence Level 7, Nirvana Tribulation Level 8, cultivated a considerable number of origin dragon martial techniques, and cultivated them to the highest level. Such an existence would be a first-class powerhouse in the outside world, invincible among those of the same level. Chapter 4289. The challenge began. Genius students were everywhere on the martial arts arena. At this moment, all of them were paying attention to Kong Xinmu's challenge. Cross-district challenge. This kind of thing was very rare. The last time a cross-district challenge appeared was when Yu Tianchong started. At that time, Yu Tianchong had only been at Donghuang Yanggu College for less than 10 years, and she was already a student of the Yuhing district. In the school competition that year, Yu Tianchong, as a student of the Yuhing district, challenged a student of the Tianji district and won. That year was the year of Yu Tianchong's rise, which created a legend for her. Within a few years, she directly became one of the top 3 in the Tianshu district. Moreover, she challenged Emperor Qin, who was originally the strongest, and replaced him. In contrast, This time, Kong Xinmu challenged the Yuhing district from the Yaoguang district. Although this cross-district challenge was of a lower level, it was obviously more difficult. Because the slowest progress of students was when they first joined Donghuang Yonggu College. In the Yuhing district, students with high talent and strong combat ability would progress much faster than other students. Leaving aside the specific reason, it was obvious that Kong Xinmu challenged the Yuhing district from the Yaoguang district was extremely rare. It might not even happen once in 100 years. It could be said that such a challenge was basically a waste of an opportunity. There was a huge gap in strength between the students of the Yuhing district and the students of the Kaiyang district. Not to mention compared to the Yaoguang district. Was Kong Xinmu serious about challenging Chu Qingyun? Or was he just trying to attract attention? But it was useless to attract attention. In Donghuang Yonggu College, being high-profile was useless. Only strength represented everything. Who would win this battle? In a nearby cloud, Yu Tianchong was also secretly watching the match. However, her attention was mostly on Dean Zhuo Xiaofeng. When Kong Xinmu stepped onto the stage, the challenge began. The moment Zhuo Xiaofeng announced the start of the battle, Yu Tianchong observed carefully. In just a moment, her face became a little gloomy. Sure enough, Zhuo Xiaofeng had done something. Chu Qingyun's strength had been increased by 20%. Even Chu Qingyun himself discovered this point. He couldn't help but be a little stunned. A 20% increase in strength, logically speaking, should only happen when one was challenged for the second time. Why did he receive such a boost in strength? Could it be that the dean had made a mistake? But seeing that the battle was about to begin, he didn't ask any more questions. He felt a little aggrieved. He could have defeated Kong Xinmu with his own strength, but now he was boosted by 20%. In the eyes of others, he was cheating. However, he had to win this match. Even if it was because the dean had made a mistake, he would not say it on the spot. Wouldn't that be disrespecting the dean? Therefore, he treated the 20% as his own. Kong Xinmu, I'm coming. Chu Qingyun instantly transformed into a dragon. His entire Thunder Divine Dragon form shot towards Kong Xinmu. The attribute of his Divine Dragon Nirvana power was lightning. This kind of power possessed a destructive lethality, and was one of the most violent Nirvana forces. Countless bolts of lightning swept towards Kong Xinmu. Kong Xinmu didn't dare to be careless. He transformed into a black divine dragon. His body was covered in demonic crystals as he charged into the sea of lightning. Moreover, he executed the Void Dragon Sky Raising Break. 6 pitch-black beams of light accompanied his divine dragon form as they shot towards Chu Qingyun. However, Chu Qingyun's strength wasn't weak to begin with. The key point was that he had been secretly strengthened by Zhuo Xiaofeng. Kong Xinmu's current attack power wasn't enough to deal with Chu Qingyun. Lightning Cage. Chu Qingyun didn't even use his Source Dragon martial skill. He simply used a Dragon-type martial skill, and boundless lightning enveloped Kong Xinmu's entire body. As for his body, it was also protected by the Lightning Cage. The Void Dragon Sky Raising Break's attack landed on the Lightning Cage, but it had no effect at all. It couldn't even shake his Nirvana lightning power. On the stage, lightning flashed. Kong Xinmu instantly fell into a stalemate. Boundless lightning power swept towards Kong Xinmu. The terrifying power nearly tore him apart. Martial Dragon Shield. Kong Xinmu's second-grade Dragon-type martial skill didn't seem to have any effect. It was instantly torn to shreds by his opponent's lightning and then bombarded onto his body. He's done for. Outside the stage, many students sighed in their hearts when they saw this scene. Sure enough, it wasn't realistic to challenge someone from a different region. The difficulty was too high. The disparity in strength was too great. But seeing that Kong Xinmu was so easily suppressed, some people were puzzled. Especially Su Qin and Luo Han. The two of them knew of Kong Xinmu's strength. Although Kong Xinmu hadn't displayed his full strength in front of them, they could imagine that he wouldn't be this weak. The key point was that Su Qin and Luo Han were very clear that Chu Qingyun's strength was similar to theirs. If they were the ones on the stage, they definitely wouldn't be able to suppress Kong Xinmu so easily. When did Chu Qingyun's strength skyrocket? But Chu Qingyun's cultivation realm didn't change, and he didn't use any new Source Dragon martial skill. He didn't even use his Heaven-grade Dragon Soldier Spear, but he was still able to suppress Kong Xinmu. This was a little strange. Could it be that Chu Qingyun had consumed some kind of pill? But in the martial arts exchange, pills weren't allowed to be used. Once they were used, it would be considered cheating and they would be directly expelled from the Alcade region. Su Qin and Luo Han couldn't figure it out, but they didn't think too much about it. After all, they weren't particularly clear about Kong Shinmu's strength. Perhaps Kong Shinmu was especially weak? Next on the stage, Chu Qingyun's attacks had already landed on Kong Shinmu's body. Countless bolts of divine lightning descended, bombarding his divine dragon body. According to the comparison of their cultivation realms, logically speaking, it was impossible for Kong Shinmu to block Chu Qingyun's attacks. However, when these bolts of divine lightning bombarded Kong Shinmu's divine dragon body, he only suffered some light superficial wounds. The terrifying strength of his physical body shocked everyone present. One had to know that Kong Shinmu was only at the 5th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, while Chu Qingyun was at the 8th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm. With such a huge disparity in cultivation, Chu Qingyun actually couldn't injure Kong Shinmu in a short period of time? As expected, his strongest point is his defense. Luo Han and Su Qin nodded inwardly. They already knew that Kong Shinmu's defense was extremely strong, and now it seemed that it was true. Lin Yuji, who was in the crowd, shook her head inwardly when she saw this scene. She had a good grasp of one's strength, so she could naturally see that there was something wrong with Chu Qingyun's strength. It's Dean Zhua again? Why is Dean Zhua targeting Kong Shinmu? Lin Yuji pursed her lips, unable to understand. When they fought before, Kong Shinmu had lost to her because of her sudden increase in strength. Now that Kong Shinmu was challenging a student from the Yuheng region, he encountered such a situation. He's quite tough. Chu Qingyun said indifferently when he saw that Kong Shinmu's physique was extremely strong. 2 heaven-grade dragon spears brought with them the power of wild lightning, sweeping towards Kong Shinmu. This time, the attack was several times stronger than before, and it actually had the momentum to kill. Chapter 4290. With a heaven-grade dragon soldier spear, thunder and lightning filled the air. It was as though the void was being torn apart. 2 thunder spear shadows suddenly swept towards Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu's nirvana devouring power completely covered his divine dragon body. At this moment, they gathered together to resist the opponent's attack. The thunder spear shadows swept over and instantly tore apart the nirvana devouring power on his black dragon body. Before the nirvana devouring power could devour the opponent's power, it was already defeated. This was the difference in power levels. Kong Shinmu really had no way to resist. Not to mention, Chu Qingyun's strength had been enhanced by 20% by Zhua Xiaofeng. When the nirvana devouring power on the surface of Kong Shinmu's nirvana devouring power was torn apart, his black dragon body directly faced the opponent's attack. In just an instant, the 2 thunder spear shadows penetrated Kong Shinmu's black dragon body, drilling 2 large holes in his body. This was still considered good. For Kong Shinmu, it was not too fatal. If it were not for the fact that his chaotic dragon body had been cultivated to the level of a dragon, he would have died from this move. Even so, there were 2 large holes on his black dragon body. Blood was already gushing out, dyeing his black dragon body red. Devouring power. Kong Shinmu's nirvana devouring power swept up at this moment and instantly covered Chu Qingyun's body. Chu Qingyun originally thought that Kong Shinmu was going to admit defeat. Who would have thought that Kong Shinmu would actually launch a counterattack? He did not have time to use his defensive dragon martial technique. Kong Shinmu's nirvana devouring power closed in on him and enveloped his thunder divine dragon body. Chu Qingyun's divine dragon body was covered with the nirvana devouring power. This was originally a power to protect him, but now it was directly devoured by Kong Shinmu and then used to recover from his injuries. The 2 bloody holes on Kong Shinmu's body started to recover at an unimaginable speed. At the same time, the Void Dragon Sky-Raising Break erupted once again. Unfortunately, it was too late for the other party to use a defensive dragon martial skill. When the lightning barrier appeared, the devouring nirvana force that was originally attached to the surface of his dragon body flew up and devoured the lightning barrier from the inside out. The Void Dragon Heaven Raising Break brought with it 6 pitch-black beams of light that blasted forth. When Chu Qingyun's lightning barrier was swallowed and weakened, the 6 black beams of light instantly landed on Chu Qingyun's body. The other party had never cultivated a body-tempering dragon martial technique, Or it could be said that very few people had cultivated a body-tempering dragon martial technique. At this time, Chu Qingyun's entire body was pierced through by those 6 black beams of light. An enraged roar rang out from the mouth of the divine dragon that Chu Qingyun had transformed into. Wild thunder rumbled in the air. He didn't expect that Kong Shinmu could still have such combat strength even after having 2 bloody holes on his body. He even managed to injure him. This is impossible. Chu Qingyun roared in rage. One had to know that Kong Shinmu was only a student from the Alcade district. If he were to lose to Kong Shinmu, what face would he have to continue staying in Donghuang Yonggu College? If he were to lose this time, he would most likely be the first student from the Yuhing district to be defeated by a student from the Alcade district. Wild thunder rumbled in the air. 2 lightning spear shadows once again swept towards Kong Shinmu. Go! Unfortunately, the other party was seriously injured, and the speed at which he used his dragon martial skill had slowed down. Kong Shinmu reacted and directly used his dragon martial skill, extreme shadow flowing light, to narrowly avoid the spear shadows. At the same time, the devouring nirvana force had already invaded his opponent's body. No one discovered that at this moment, Dean Xiaofeng's expression was getting colder and colder. He didn't expect that after increasing Chu Qingyun's strength by 20%, this fellow would still be seriously injured by Kong Shinmu. If this continued, Chu Qingyun would most likely lose. At this time, Xiaofeng couldn't care so much. In short, he couldn't let Kong Shinmu win. In the dark, he attacked again. Chu Qingyun, who was originally the focus, suddenly felt the injuries on his body begin to solidify. Moreover, his strength was enhanced once again. A total of 50% increase in strength. Chu Qingyun found it unbelievable. The key was that the injuries on his body had solidified, causing him to become ruthless once again. Although he didn't know why Xiaofeng was helping him, he wouldn't miss such an opportunity. He thought to himself, could it be that Kong Shinmu had offended the dean? Otherwise, why would the dean take such a risk to enhance his strength? After all, this was the rule of Donghuang Yonggu College. Even the dean didn't have the authority to interfere with the competition. Chu Qingyun's strength erupted in an instant. Another 2 lightning spear shadows, accompanied by the peak of his source dragon martial skill, roared towards Kong Shinmu. His injuries rapidly recovered, so the speed at which he executed the dragon martial skill had increased once again. It wasn't easy for Kong Shinmu to dodge. Even if he executed the extreme shadow flowing light, he was still struck by the 2 spear shadows. His black dragon tail was actually chopped off by the opponent's lightning spear shadows, and it was even smashed into pieces on the Martial Exchange Plaza. A section of the black dragon tail fell under the endless bombardment of lightning, finally landing on the Martial Exchange Plaza, charred black. At this moment, the entire square was deathly silent. No one had imagined that this battle would actually be horrifying to such an extent. There was no need to explain how important a dragon tail was to a dragon martial artist. In this battle, Kong Shinmu's dragon tail had been chopped off. This would have an extremely fatal impact on his future cultivation. Without a dragon tail, not only would his combat strength be greatly weakened, but his cultivation speed would also be much slower than before. If Kong Shinmu was originally a genius, then he had now become an ordinary dragon martial artist. And if an ordinary dragon martial artist's dragon tail was chopped off, it could even be said that he would be crippled. Even so, Kong Shinmu still didn't give up on this battle. AI. So what if he wins? If his dragon tail is chopped off, his achievements in this life will only be like this. That's right. It's just for a spot in the Yuhing district. What's the point? Many students didn't know the truth, and they shook their heads regretfully. But many students discovered that just now, Chu Qingyun's explosive strength had increased by a large amount. This situation was a bit abnormal. When did Chu Qingyun cultivate the dragon martial skill? Last year, Chu Qingyun was almost challenged by a student from the Kaiyang district. But this year, the strength he had erupted with could even challenge a student from the Migres district. This was clearly not right. If Chu Qingyun had this strength, he should have challenged the Migres district yesterday. Why wasn't there any movement? In the crowd, Lin Yuji secretly glanced at Xiaofeng. Seeing that his complexion wasn't good, she had a rough guess in her heart. Now she could be sure that Kong Shinmu had offended Xiaofeng and was targeted by him. Chapter 4291. On the stage, when Chu Qingyun saw that he had chopped off Kong Shinmu's dragon tail, he was stunned for a moment. He had never thought of chopping off Kong Shinmu's dragon tail. It was only because Kong Shinmu had been slightly slower when dodging that the dragon tail had been chopped off. But at this time, his expression was cold and indifferent. It was impossible for him to sympathize with Kong Shinmu. To him, a battle was a matter of life and death. Even if it was the Academy Grand Competition, it was still the same. If Kong Shinmu had admitted defeat earlier, how could his dragon tail have been chopped off? Still not admitting defeat? Chu Qingyun coldly snorted. His berserk thunder divine dragon body was high up in the air as he looked down at the injured Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu, you don't know what's good for you. You force me to use my secret technique. If you still don't admit defeat, don't blame me if you lose your life. In order to protect Zhuo Xiaofeng and also to explain the eruption just now, he directly said that he had used his secret technique and used his trump card. Otherwise, many people would doubt his strength. Chu Qingyun thought that it didn't matter if he was doubted, but it wouldn't be good if it affected Zhuo Xiaofeng. Could it be that the dean was helping him because he thought highly of him? Before he could think further, he suddenly felt that his divine dragon body was a little weak. What's going on? There seems to be some of his power in my body. Is it devouring my life essence? Chu Qingyun frowned. He could feel the nirvana-devouring power wreaking havoc in his body. This nirvana-devouring power had been refined once. Although Zhuo Xiaofeng had healed Chu Qingyun's injuries from afar, he couldn't eliminate the nirvana-devouring power in his body. This led to the nirvana-devouring power continuously devouring his life essence. Kong Shinmu's injuries were rapidly recovering. Not mentioning his dragon tail for the time being, he didn't try to recover his dragon tail in public. Instead, he focused on healing the injuries in other places. Soon, he had recovered at least 80% of his combat strength. Although his dragon tail was severed, Kong Shinmu wasn't nervous in the slightest. Instead, he had a cold expression on his face. At this moment, the extreme shadow-flowing light and void dragon raising the heavens break continued to revolve around Chu Qingyun's body. The constant attacks made Chu Qingyun incomparably angry. His two heaven-grade dragon soldier spears turned into two lightning chains and chased after Kong Shinmu from two different directions, trying to trap Kong Shinmu. However, now that Kong Shinmu was running away with all his might, how could he be trapped so easily? As Chu Qingyun's nirvana-swallowing power continued to swallow his flesh and blood essence, he could clearly feel himself becoming weaker and weaker. Even though the 50% increase in strength that Zhuo Xiaofeng had given him was still present, he was unable to unleash it. His life force was rapidly depleting. As Kong Shinmu's nirvana-devouring power was becoming stronger and more condensed, the speed at which he devoured his opponent's flesh and blood essence was extremely fast. When he had first devoured the flesh and blood essence of the dragon warriors, it had taken him 2 to 4 hours to kill them. Now, he only needed the time to brew a cup of tea. Too fast. The nirvana-devouring power speed was so fast that Chu Qingyun didn't have time to react. After a while, he discovered that the dragon martial skill he used was no longer a threat to Kong Shinmu. This greatly shocked him, but his mental state was also becoming worse and worse. The strength in his body was becoming increasingly empty, causing him to become drowsy. What was going on? Chu Qingyun was greatly shocked. When he had first erupted with power, he hadn't been able to kill Kong Shinmu. Instead, he had only severed his dragon tail, causing him to lose the initiative. Now, if he wanted to defeat Kong Shinmu, he would need Zhuo Xiaofeng to double his strength again. But if that was the case, Zhuo Xiaofeng's actions would very likely be exposed. It was impossible for him to do that. Just as Kong Shinmu thought in his heart, Zhuo Xiaofeng was simply angered to death by Chu Qingyun. This guy, he had already increased his strength by 50%, but he still couldn't defeat Kong Shinmu. He had only managed to sever Kong Shinmu's dragon tail? This was not the result that Zhuo Xiaofeng wanted. Zhuo Xiaofeng's face was a little gloomy. However, there was no other way now. He could only consider how to deal with Kong Shinmu after he won this battle. The situation on the battlefield was becoming more and more unfavorable for Chu Qingyun. Kong Shinmu's nirvana-devouring power had already devoured most of his flesh and blood essence. This allowed Jiang Shenwu to fully recover from all of his injuries except for his dragon tail. Even the 2 bloody holes on his dragon body had been completely healed. His flesh and blood had solidified, and he had fully recovered. His combat strength was only slightly weakened because his dragon tail was severed. On the other hand, Chu Qingyun's life force was almost completely devoured. The violent lightning radiance on his divine dragon body had already dimmed. The surface of his divine dragon body was covered in dried blood. Those were the wounds caused by Kong Shinmu that had healed. If it was just Chu Qingyun alone, it was impossible to heal these wounds. That was the result of Zhuo Xiaofeng secretly healing him. But now, Chu Qingyun was defeated, thoroughly defeated. Even with Zhuo Xiaofeng increasing his strength by 50%, he still lost. Chu Qingyun no longer felt anything and finally collapsed on the martial arts plaza. Kong Shinmu did not kill him. Seeing that he was so weak that he fainted, he stopped the nirvana-devouring power in his body. He raised his head and glanced at Zhuo Xiaofeng. At this time, he was sure that Zhuo Xiaofeng was up to no good. This dean actually targeted a small Dragon King Academy student like him. He was really petty to the extreme. Kong Shinmu did not expect this situation. But he still won, ruthlessly slapping Zhuo Xiaofeng's face. When he raised his head and looked at Zhuo Xiaofeng was expressionless as he said, "Kong Shinmu, victory, enter the Alioth district." The announcement of this news caused an uproar in the plaza. Some people were shocked, some felt that it was a pity, and some felt that it was unnecessary. After all, Kong Shinmu's dragon tail had been severed. Whether it was cultivation or combat strength, it would be greatly reduced. It was really a waste to let him enter the Alioth district. But winning a challenge in the Academy Grand Tournament allowed one to enter deeper areas. This was the rule, so no one could say anything about it. When Kong Shinmu heard Zhuo Xiaofeng announce that he won and entered the Alioth district, he also felt relieved. He returned to his human form and left the martial arts plaza. He felt incomparably weak. Although most of his injuries had recovered, he had not reformed his dragon tail. The current him was much weaker than when he was at his peak. If it wasn't for the nirvana-devouring power in Chu Qingyun's body, it would have been difficult for Kong Shinmu to win this time. There was no need for Kong Shinmu to watch the following battles. He directly turned and left. Ran nervously followed him. At the same time, Qin Fengyu and Lu Hua, the two senior brothers and sisters, also followed. Luo Han, Su Qin, and Lin Yuji also wanted to follow. The first two were students of the Alioth district and would be challenged today, so they could not leave. As for Lin Yuji, she also wanted to challenge the Alioth district today, so she did not leave. Chapter 4292. Of course, Kong Shinmu did not watch the rest of the competition. He returned to his palace, and the competition in the martial arts forum was still going on. His dragon tail was chopped off, but it was not the first time for him. If he wanted to, he could immediately restore and grow his dragon tail. However, he did not do it for the time being in order to deceive others. His injury was not serious at all, but in the eyes of everyone else, he was seriously injured to the point of death. Was it worth it to be injured to this extent for a place in the Yuhing district? For Kong Shinmu, it was certainly worth it. Not only did he want to go to the Yuhing district to cultivate faster, but most importantly, Zhuo Xiaofeng did not want him to win, and he defeated Chu Qingyun. And in the end, Zhuo Xiaofeng actually increased Chu Qingyun's strength by 50%, which completely violated the rules of the school competition. It could be said that such a thing had never happened in the history of Donghuang Yonggu College. This Zhuo Xiaofeng is said to be a student of Donghuang Yonggu College. I didn't expect him to be so evil. Not to mention Donghuang Yonggu College, even in the entire Dragon Martial continent, no one dares to do anything to Zhuo Xiaofeng. He's a super divine dragon. And the Green Sky Calamity Dragon, who is stronger than him, will not come here. It's conceivable that no matter what Zhuo Xiaofeng does, no one will stop him. Kong Shinmu returned to the palace and gritted his teeth. Was there really no one who could control Zhuo Xiaofeng? Kong Shinmu did not think so. If Zhuo Xiaofeng really had no scruples, he would have killed him by now. Anyway, no one could say anything, and he could just charge Kong Shinmu with a crime. It would not be like now, repeatedly targeting him but not killing him. This was obviously not normal. Of course, perhaps Zhuo Xiaofeng did not take Kong Shinmu seriously in the past, but now, he might feel threatened by Kong Shinmu and kill him. These were all uncertain. No one knew what Zhuo Xiaofeng was thinking. Let's recuperate for a while. Let's see what happens. Zhuo Xiaofeng should not kill me. After all, the death of a student of Donghuang Yanggu College is a big deal. Kong Xinmu thought. He planned to observe the situation first. After all, he had just won the competition and could go to the Yuhing district to cultivate. If nothing happened while cultivating in the Yuhing district, Zhuo Xiaofeng should be unable to do anything to him. In any case, he had to be careful. Once Zhuo Xiaofeng seized the opportunity, Jiang Shenwu might really be beaten to death. Unfortunately, Jiang Shenwu did not have to wait long. Yu Xinmu, Martial Yu was to Shengmu. At this time, the Academy tournament in the Martial Arts Forum should still be going on. It was impossible for Zhuo Xiaofeng to leave. After all, the Academy tournament needed someone to oversee it. Therefore, Yu Tianchong came to Jiang Shenwu at this time because Zhuo Xiaofeng could not be there. Now, you should leave first. Yu Tianchong's graceful figure came to Jiang Shenwu and found him. She looked at him with a nervous expression on her beautiful face. What happened? Kong Xinmu frowned. Zhuo Xiaofeng's eyes were full of killing intent just now, Yu Tianchong said concisely. I'm afraid that he wants to kill you, so I'm here to warn you. If you don't leave now, I'm afraid your life will be in danger. Yu Tianchong said concisely. Where can I go in the Dragon Martial Continent? Kong Xinmu smiled bitterly. Western Imperial Dragon Martial Arts Academy, Yu Tianchong said solemnly. Western Imperial Dragon Martial Arts Academy is also known as Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. In fact, it's the same. It's located in the west of the Dragon Martial Continent. The Dean of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy once met me and invited me to join the academy. However, because I was born in the east of Dragon Country, not in the west, I didn't go. If you take the token that the Dean of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy gave me and go to the academy, the Dean will probably accept you. After all, the talent you're showing now is more outstanding than mine. Yu Tianchong's words surprised Kong Xinmu. He didn't expect that Yu Tianchong had been invited by Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy before she joined Donghuang Yanggu College. It seemed that her talent was so great that the Dean of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy, who was traveling around, personally gave her a token to invite her. Now, the token became Kong Xinmu's life-saving straw. After saying that, Yu Tianchong took out a fiery red feather. This is Emperor Shi's feather. It's very precious even in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. This is the token that the Dean gave me back then. After you get there, just show me the token. You should be able to join Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. Yu Tianchong made it very clear. However, Kong Xinmu was a little puzzled. I came from Donghuang Yanggu College. Will Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy still accept me as a student? That's naturally not a problem. Yu Tianchong laughed softly and said, Don't worry. Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy and Donghuang Yanggu College have a competitive relationship. They're both academies established by the Supreme Divine Dragon Seniors to cultivate super divine dragons. Above Donghuang Yanggu College is the Dragon of Azure Sky Calamity. Above Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy is, of course, Emperor Shi's Divine Dragon. Emperor Shi's Divine Dragon and the Dragon of Azure Sky Calamity have a competitive relationship. So that's how it is. Kong Xinmu didn't know much about matters of a higher level. As the top disciple of Donghuang Yanggu College, Yu Tianchong would almost certainly become a super divine dragon in the future. It wasn't strange that she knew about these things now. Zhuo Xiaofeng is too narrow-minded. Although he's very talented, it's hard for him to achieve great things. Yu Tianchong thought about it and said, if you want to take revenge on him, you don't have to become stronger than him. You just have to perform outstandingly in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. Both academies exist to cultivate super divine dragons. As long as you perform outstandingly, the higher your potential in the future, the more you'll slap Zhuo Xiaofeng in the face. Every 10 years, the 4 Dragon Martial Arts Academies will have a certain exchange. At that time, the strongest batch of students will compete. At that time, the 4 Supreme Divine Dragon Seniors will come to observe. As long as you perform outstandingly in the exchange, Zhuo Xiaofeng will naturally be embarrassed. forcing a genius like you out of Donghuang Yonggu College and to go to another academy. The Dragon of Azure Sky Calamity will definitely not let Zhuo Xiaofeng have it easy. If your performance is even more outstanding than Zhuo Xiaofeng's back then, I'm afraid the Supreme Divine Dragon Seniors will even have thoughts of killing Zhuo Xiaofeng. Chapter 4293. There was no time to lose. Kong Xinmu had to leave while Zhuo Xiaofeng was still presiding over the competition. Then I'll take Ran Ran with me, Kong Xinmu said resolutely, glancing at the girl in black who had been standing firmly beside him. Ran Ran was very angry now. She already knew what had happened just now. Zhuo Xiaofeng, the dean of the academy, had actually helped Chu Qingyun by increasing his strength by 50%. As a result, he had severely injured Kong Xinmu and almost killed Kong Xinmu. Even after Kong Xinmu had defeated him, Dean Zhuo Xiaofeng still wanted to kill Kong Xinmu. This undoubtedly infuriated Ran Ran to death. It was a pity that she couldn't beat Zhuo Xiaofeng. Otherwise, she would definitely beat him up for Kong Xinmu. She wouldn't be able to vent her anger without crippling him. Now that there was a chance to leave and join another Dragon Martial Academy, the hope of revenge in the future would be very high. Moreover, according to Yu Tianshang, as long as Kong Xinmu performed well enough, Zhuo Xiaofeng wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. I'll go with Brother Jiang. If both of us perform well, won't Zhuo Xiaofeng be angered to death? Ran Ran narrowed her eyes and said, Of course. He'll be angered to death. Yu Tianshang pursed her lips and smiled slyly. I'm afraid he'll be beaten to death by the Dragon of Calamity. However, when you get there, act according to the circumstances. I can't help you with the specifics, so you must be careful. Of course, Kong Xinmu knew all this. He was very grateful that Yu Tianshang could tell him so many things, and he didn't know how to thank her. If she needed the Dragon Mark's energy in the future, Kong Xinmu could transfer it to her. Of course, it would probably be a while before that happened. After all, he probably wouldn't be able to see Yu Tianshang for a long time from now on. Moreover, Kong Xinmu could only impart his divine dragon blood essence to people of a lower grade than him. Therefore that day was still far away. Of course, as long as Kong Xinmu didn't die, there would be a chance. As for Yu Tianchong, even if Zhuo Xiaofeng guessed that it was she who tipped him off and let Kong Xinmu run away, he would not dare to do anything to her. Before Zhuo Xiaofeng became the dean, Yu Tianchong was already very famous. The Blue Sky Tribulation Dragon must have known Yu Tianchong's name. If something were to happen to Yu Tianchong, the Blue Sky Tribulation Dragon would never let it go. Zhuo Xiaofeng should just die. Kong Xinmu did not waste too much time. He took Ran Ran with him and followed Yu Tianchong to the East Emperor Formation. If he wanted to quickly head to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy, he naturally had to use the ancient teleportation formation. Otherwise, he would probably be intercepted by Zhuo Xiaofeng before he could get far. At that time, only death would await him. Princess Fire Phoenix, please take care of her. Kong Xinmu was about to leave. He was a little reluctant, but there was no time for him to reminisce. Since Zhuo Xiaofeng really wanted to kill him, he had to leave. He had no choice but to leave. Moreover, even if Zhuo Xiaofeng did not want to kill him, it was better for him to leave than to stay here. He could not be tricked by Zhuo Xiaofeng every year in the academy tournament, could he? This time, his dragon tail had been cut off. Even if it was restored, others would doubt him. Zhuo Xiaofeng would also feel that he was more of a threat. One day, Kong Xinmu would be tricked to death. After leaving the East Emperor Formation, Kong Xinmu and Ran Ran could fly very fast. As long as they left the eastern part of the Dragon Martial Continent as soon as possible, Zhuo Xiaofeng would not be able to do anything to them. I will set the teleportation location for you, Yu Tianchong instructed. After you teleport there, you will see a very large forest. That forest is actually the boundary forest in the center of the Dragon Martial Continent. It divides the Dragon Martial Continent into 4 regions, which are the East, South, West, and West. The boundary forest was the forest in the center of the Dragon Martial Continent. It divided the entire continent into 4 regions. According to Yu Tianchong, the areas that the Dragon Martial Academies were responsible for were divided according to the boundary forest. The token of Emperor Shi that Yu Tianchong had given to Kong Xinmu could create a spatial passage. As long as they passed through the boundary forest and reached the western part of the Dragon Martial Continent, they could directly connect to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. The key was to pass through the boundary forest. "I will escort you there," Yu Tianchong said directly. "I will escort you there." Without Yu Tianchong's escort, there were many demonic beasts with powerful bloodlines in the boundary forest. With Kong Shinmu's strength, it would not be easy to pass through the boundary forest. He might even die there. Even if he was lucky enough to pass through, he might be stopped by Zhuo Xiaofeng halfway. With Yu Tianchong, they would be able to pass through the boundary forest very quickly. "Thank you." Kong Shinmu nodded. No matter what, they had to go this time. Yu Tianchong could only take care of the Fire Phoenix Princess. As for the other students of Donghuang Yonggu College, and even his mentor Chu Yueqiang, Kong Shinmu could only put them to the back of his mind. Then, while the academy tournament was still ongoing, Yu Tianchong led Kong Shinmu and Ran Ran to activate the Grand Orient Formation. The three of them disappeared from Donghuang Yonggu College. If it was Kong Shinmu who activated the formation, he might not have so many experience points. However, Yu Tianchong naturally had a lot. When Kong Shinmu opened his eyes again, he found himself in a strange place. Just as Yu Tianchong had said, there was a boundless forest in front of him. The Boundary Forest. This dense forest divided the entire continent into 4 regions, and there were 4 dragon martial academies built in each region, with the purpose of nurturing super mystical dragons. It is said that the rules for students of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy and Donghuang Yonggu College are similar. In the future, I can also use the Emperor Shi formation to teleport back to the Yen Dragon Emperor dynasty. However, I will need to spend more experience points. Kong Shinmu thought it was a pity. However, with his current strength, as long as he could take on high-level training missions, he would definitely be able to earn experience points faster. All in all, he was not at a loss. It was better than staying in Donghuang Yonggu College and living in fear. Zhuo Xiaofeng was too treacherous. Kong Shinmu did not know when he would be stabbed again. To Zhuo Xiaofeng, Jiang Shenwu might not be a big deal. He was just a small fry that could be killed with just a few tricks. However, to Kong Shinmu, he could not die. He even had a secret that even the Supreme Divine Dragons might not know about. "I can't die. I have to rise up and have the ability to rescue my father." Kong Shinmu made up his mind. Then, Yu Tianchong led them to fly toward the boundary forest. She planned to cross the forest. Although it was said to be separating the entire continent, the forest was actually not particularly vast. With Yu Tianchong, they could cross it in 6 to 8 hours. Chapter 4294. As they flew over the forest, Kong Shinmu could clearly hear the roars of the demonic beasts in the forest below. If he were the only one flying over, the demonic beasts would probably attack him. But with Yu Tianchong around, the demonic beasts only roared and didn't dare to jump out and attack. Kong Shinmu's dragon tail was cut off. Since they were already here, there was no need to hide anymore. He directly devoured some of the Yao Core's energy and reformed his dragon tail. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to keep up with Yu Tianchong's speed. Even Ran Ran was much faster than him. Seeing Kong Shinmu's dragon tail quickly recover, Yu Tianchong glanced at him and didn't say anything. She already knew that Kong Shinmu had the ability to quickly recover, but she didn't expect Kong Shinmu to be able to recover even after his dragon tail was cut off. However, this wasn't a very heaven-defying ability. For some dragon warriors, having their dragon tails cut off would mean the end of their future. But in this world, there were many ways to restore a dragon tail. It was just that the cost was high. Kong Shinmu could restore his own dragon tail. This ability was something that several students in Donghuang Yonggu College possessed. After the dragon tail was restored, the 3 of them flew over the forest at an extremely fast speed. After only 2 hours, they saw the end of the forest. This is the territory of the Emperor Shi Dragon Force Academy. Yu Tianchong sighed and said, "Kong Shinmu, you must be careful in the future. Cultivate well in the Emperor Shi Dragon Force Academy. You must rise and make Zhuo Xiaofeng regret what he did today." "Yes, don't worry. Thank you." Kong Shinmu finally let out a sigh of relief. The 3 of them transformed into human forms and landed outside the forest, preparing to say goodbye. Yu Tianchong turned around and was about to leave, but after thinking about it, She suddenly turned around and glanced at Kong Shinmu with a charming smile. Kong Shinmu, I'll wait for you to catch up to me. With your talent, it's only a matter of time before you catch up to me. After saying this, she took 2 steps forward and stood in front of Jiang Shenwu, raising her head to look at him. Then, she suddenly took out a jade pendant and handed it to him. This is a protective jade pendant. It was made for me by the former dean of Donghuang Yongwu College. In the Dragon Martial Continent, no matter who attacked me, this jade pendant can block it. However, it can only block it once. Saying this, she stuffed the jade pendant into Kong Shinmu's hand. Jiang Shenwu was surprised. He didn't expect Yu Tianchong to give him such a precious jade pendant. What was the meaning of this? Yu Tianchong warned him to escape and sent him here. She was already very nice to him. Now, she even gave him the jade pendant. He felt really bad about it. This girl was too nice to him. However, just as he was about to refuse, he felt Yu Tianchong's delicate hands tighten around his. He could feel her soft and smooth skin. Don't refuse. You're the man I like. You can't die like this. Yu Tianchong whispered in his ear. Then, she turned around and left with a beautiful smile. Kong Shinmu was dumbfounded. Since when did Yu Tianchong like him? No way. Yu Tianchong liked him? She even gave him the precious jade pendant. Although it was a bit unbelievable, Yu Tianchong didn't have to lie to him. With Yu Tianchong's strength, if she wanted to harm him, she could just kill him directly. Why would she be so nice to him? In any case, Yu Tianchong transformed into a dragon and left at an extremely fast speed. Kong Shinmu couldn't catch up with her. After a while, she disappeared from the sky. Kong Shinmu could only put away the jade pendant and sigh. Ran, let's go to Emperor Shilonggu Academy. He said to the girl in black beside him. However, the girl in black was also a bit confused. She originally thought that she was Kong Shinmu's only wife. But now, there was an extremely talented and beautiful girl who said that she liked Kong Shinmu. This made her feel a bit resentful. Brother Jiang is mine. She glanced at the jade pendant Kong Shinmu put away. She wasn't in a good mood. However, thinking that the jade pendant was for Kong Shinmu to save his life, she didn't say anything. When Kong Shinmu talked to her, she nodded and didn't think too much. In fact, she was thinking about how she could compete with Yu Tianchong. In the future, Brother Jiang and I will be together at Emperor Shilonggu Academy. If Yu Tianchong wants to see Brother Jiang, it will take at least a few years. After seeing too much, feelings would develop over time. After seeing too little, not to mention forgetting, they would definitely not be too familiar with each other. Ran thought to herself, this is where my advantage lies. A spatial tunnel connected to Emperor Shilonggu Academy from the edge of the forest of dividing boundaries. Kong Shinmu took a deep breath and stepped in with Ran. When he opened his eyes again, he saw an extremely magnificent scene. A building sat in the sea of clouds, forming the shape of a flaming divine dragon. It was faintly discernible in the sea of clouds. He and Ran appeared directly in the sky above the building. The spatial tunnel behind him quickly dissipated and turned back into a fiery red feather. This was the token of Emperor Shi that Yu Tianchong gave to Kong Shinmu. The spatial passageway of Emperor Shi's token was a one-time use item. Although Kong Shinmu still had this fiery red feather, it was impossible for him to use it to teleport to Emperor Shilonggu Academy. However, he only needed to use it this once anyway. If everything went well in the future, he would use the Emperor Shi array to travel through space during his cultivation at Emperor Shilonggu Academy. Compared to Donghuang Yongwu Academy, Emperor Shilonggu Academy's scale wasn't small. It was even more majestic. The main reason was that the buildings in the Sea of Clouds were all fiery red, making people feel like they were in a raging inferno. When Ran and Kong Shinmu appeared above the buildings in the Sea of Clouds, they attracted the attention of some people. Not long after, a fiery red divine dragon flew up from the buildings below, bringing with it a wave of fiery red clouds. It rose up and appeared in front of Kong Shinmu and Ran in an instant. This divine dragon was almost 10,000 feet long. It was a super divine dragon. Who are you? The fiery red divine dragon suddenly transformed into a human form. It was actually a beautiful woman. She wore a fiery red dress, and her phoenix-like eyes were cold and indifferent. This beautiful woman had the blood essence of a super divine dragon. She was most likely the current dean of Emperor Shi Longgu Academy. Kong Xinmu didn't expect the other party to be a woman. Seeing that the other party had transformed into a human, the pressure was reduced slightly. He finally had a chance to speak. Under the pressure of a super divine dragon, he couldn't even open his mouth. He immediately said, "Yu Tianshang introduced me." When he mentioned the name Heavenly Feather Dress, the expression of the super divine dragon woman changed. Chapter 4295. Soon, Kong Xinmu told her what had happened. At this time, the super divine dragon beauty's expression became very strange. The new dean of Donghuang Yanggu College, Zhua Xiaofeng, has been framing you and even wanted to kill you? Zhua Xiaofeng is actually interested in that girl, Yu Tianchang, and wants her to be his woman? Ha! I told you not to go to a place like Donghuang Yanggu College. You asked for it. The super divine dragon beauty snorted softly. When Kong Xinmu heard this, he immediately felt that the relationship between Yu Tianchang and this beautiful woman seemed to be a little unusual. Previously, Yu Tianchang had said that the dean here had taken a fancy to her. However, her dragon country was in the territory of Donghuang Yanggu College, so she still chose to join Donghuang Yanggu College. But if that was the case, why did this super divine dragon beauty's tone sound a little strange? However, no matter what the relationship between them was, Kong Xinmu could not ask too much now. After all, he had just arrived, and his priority was to gain a foothold in Emperor Shi Dragon Martial College. You said that in your second year in Donghuang Yanggu College, you defeated a Yuhing district student whose strength had been enhanced by 50%? The super divine dragon beauty glanced at Kong Xinmu and then at Ran. As for you, you passed the genius trial and became a student of Donghuang Yanggu College. Let's do it this way. Both of you will have a spar with the students of Emperor Shi Dragon Martial College. If your performance is good, you can join our college. Of course, if your performance is too bad, don't blame me for being merciless. This meant that both Kong Xinmu and Ran had a chance. This made Kong Xinmu feel very grateful. Thank you, senior. Don't thank me. You fought for this opportunity. The super divine dragon beauty said lightly, if you don't perform well, you can't blame others. Come with me. Kong Xinmu and Ran quickly followed. They arrived at the Martial Arts Forum of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. The Martial Arts Forum was made of fiery red bricks, and the atmosphere was lively. It was completely different from the style of Donghuang Yanggu College. However, the Dragon Martial Continent's 4 Dragon Martial Academies had the same general rules and structure. The cultivation areas of the students were divided into 7 areas from Dubhe to Alcade. The annual academy competition and the genius trial held in the lower city were also the same. The place where the Grand Academy competition was held was called the Martial Arts Forum. But the scene was slightly different. Kong Xinmu and Ran followed the beautiful lady in red to the Martial Arts Forum. Soon, they noticed that many students from Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy had appeared. Every single one of these dragon warrior students was a proud son of heaven. In Kong Xinmu's opinion, their cultivation realm was not weaker than the students from Donghuang Yanggu College. They were at least at the 5th or 6th tier of the Nirvana Tribulation realm. Moreover, the divine dragon's blood essence was of a higher grade than the Dragon King. However, there was one thing that Kong Xinmu had to pay attention to. Why were there so many young girls among the students from Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy? In Donghuang Yanggu College, the number of female students was slightly less than the male students. However, in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy, Kong Xinmu realized that there were 2 to 3 times more female students than male students. From the number of students around the Martial Arts Forum who were prepared to watch the battle, the number of female students in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy was definitely higher than the number of male students. Kong Xinmu swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Could this Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy be giving preferential treatment to the female students? If that was the case, wouldn't the male students be in a very sad situation? In our Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy, the Emperor Shi Divine Dragon is a female. The beautiful super divine dragon glanced at Kong Xinmu and seemed to have guessed what he was thinking. Hence, she calmly explained, therefore, many of the dragon martial arts techniques in our Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy are more suitable for females to cultivate. When selecting talents, females will also be given preferential treatment, and the conditions will be slightly more relaxed. Of course, every student in our Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy will not be weaker than the students in Donghuang Yonggu College. All of them are top-notch geniuses who are one in a million. This explanation allowed Kong Xinmu to understand the situation in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. However, he was also feeling a little uncomfortable. Many of the dragon martial arts techniques in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy were more suitable for females to cultivate. Then, when he wanted to choose the source dragon martial arts technique to cultivate, wouldn't he have fewer choices? Of course, he didn't consider this for the time being. For now, it was better to challenge and defeat the students of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy first. He didn't know what kind of students the beautiful super divine dragon before him would arrange for him to fight. Have you heard? There are students from Donghuang Yonggu College who are being persecuted over there. They want to join our academy. I heard about it. Our dean said that he wants to find someone to challenge. If the other party can defeat our students, they can join our Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. Then we can't lose. Otherwise, people will think that our Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy is inferior to them. That might not be the case. They are being persecuted. The more talented they are, the more advantageous it is for us. Think about it. During the exchange between the four academies, if this guy amazes everyone and kills the students from Donghuang Yonggu College, wouldn't that make the students from Donghuang Yonggu College depressed to death? Kong Xinmu and Ran Ran stood at the martial arts symposium and listened to the conversations of the students around them. They felt a little emotional. Originally, they thought that the students from Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy would not welcome them. However, now it seemed that the female students around the martial arts symposium were all staring at Kong Xinmu with glowing eyes. As for the few male students, they were all staring at Ran Ran. For Ran Ran, such a young and beautiful girl, it was impossible for any man not to notice her. As for Kong Xinmu, he looked like a youth and was only at the 5th tier of the Nirvana Tribulation realm. However, it was said that he defeated a student from Donghuang Yonggu College from Yuhing District. If this was true, he was definitely a top-notch genius. Many of the female students from Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy looked at Kong Xinmu with glowing eyes. Even if they only saw such a youth frequently, teasing him was still a great pleasure. Xiao Yuhua, Liang Xiao, the two of you, step forward. Very quickly, the super mystical dragon lady picked out 2 students from the spectating students. Among them, Xiao Yuhua was a female dragon martial artist and a student from Yuhing District. She was at the 6th tier of the Dragon King's blood essence, and she was at the 8th tier of the Nirvana Tribulation realm. She was considered one of the weaker students in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. However, in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy, Xiao Yuhua's reputation was not low. This was because she was still young and had only joined Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy for 4 years. She had already entered Yuhing District. Her talent was definitely extraordinary. Chapter 4296. As for Liang Xiao, he was a male student who had just joined Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. Liang Xiao had the cultivation of the 6th tier of the Nirvana Tribulation realm. As for the Divine Dragon's blood essence, it had just reached the level of the Dragon King. After all, this person had just joined Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. It was normal for a new student to have such strength. He did not look strong, but as a school that gave preferential treatment to female dragon martial artists, Liang Xiao's ability to join proved that he had a certain level of strength. Although his cultivation level was 1 tier lower than Ran Ran's, Ran Ran should not be underestimated. After all, Ran Ran had not cultivated any powerful origin source dragon martial arts technique recently. If Liang Xiao had cultivated a powerful origin source dragon martial arts technique, he might be stronger than Ran Ran. However, if Ran Ran could defeat Liang Xiao, then it would not be a problem for her to join Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. The first match, Ran Ran vs Liang Xiao. The beautiful super divine dragon, who is also the dean of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy, retreated to the side after announcing this. Putting everything else aside, just based on their interactions so far, Kong Xinmu felt that the dean here was much more reliable than Zhu Xiaofeng. At least, she looked much more amiable and did not have an air of superiority. This should be how a dean should look like. After all, the Dragon Martial Arts Academy was meant to nurture super divine dragons. Many of the students were future super divine dragons. In that case, the closer the dean was to them, the better it would be in the future. For example, Zhuo Xiaofeng had forced Kong Xinmu and Ran Ran to leave. Once they rose to become super divine dragons in the future, Zhuo Xiaofeng would be in big trouble. Not only would Kong Xinmu and Ran Ran let go of each other easily, because he had forced away two future super divine dragons, the Dragon of Calamity would not be polite to Zhuo Xiaofeng. Kong Xinmu also stepped aside. Next, it was time for Ran Ran. All the best. He only said 2 words before Kong Xinmu flew to the side to watch. Ran Ran nodded. Her beautiful eyes glanced at Liang Xiao, whose name had been called. Her expression did not change from beginning to end. I am Liang Xiao. The other party cupped his fists and bowed to Ran Ran. He seemed to be a very polite young man. He was clad in armor and looked extraordinary. It was obvious that it was a powerful dragon weapon, and a defensive one at that. Ran Ran. Ran Ran introduced herself. Then, her expression became solemn. This battle might be meaningless to Liang Xiao. At most, he would defeat Ran Ran, which would give him some experience points as a reward. But for Ran Ran, it meant a lot. She was still young. Even if she participated in Emperor Shi's Trial of Talents in Longwu City next year, she would definitely be able to rise. However, she did not want to be delayed for even a year. As long as she defeated Liang Xiao now, she would be able to join Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy and become one of its students. Then, she would be able to start cultivating quickly. That was why Ran Ran could not lose. Moreover, Ran Ran felt a sense of crisis. Yu Tianchong had sent them here. Before she left, Ran Ran was very vigilant. Now that she had a chance to cultivate with Kong Xinmu, she had to seize this opportunity. If she missed it, she would lose an entire year's opportunity to be with Kong Xinmu. That would have a huge impact. Therefore, Ran Ran was extremely serious now. She was even more serious than during the Trial of Talents. Please enlighten me. Liang Xiao was very polite. After cupping his fists and bowing, he finally transformed into a blood-red divine dragon. This blood-red divine dragon body contained rich blood qi. It turned out to be a rather rare blood elemental power. Kong Xinmu was a little surprised when he saw this. When he cultivated the chaotic dragon body, he cultivated a total of 9 elemental powers. His resistance to these 9 powers was greatly enhanced. These 9 attributes were water and fire, wind and thunder, light and darkness, 6 common attributes, and 3 rarer attributes. Among the 3 rare powers, one of them was the blood elemental power. This kind of talent was relatively rare, but a dragon warrior with a blood elemental power would definitely have a high combat strength. It should be noted that Kong Xinmu felt that his own devouring talent was not a rare power, but a branch of the dark elemental power. For example, the power of the starry sky was a branch of the light elemental power, and the power of ice was a branch of the water elemental power. Kong Xinmu had seen all the main powers. But this was the first time he had seen the blood elemental power. Ran Ran sensed the bloody aura erupting from her opponent, and she became more serious. She transformed into a slender black dragon. Her talent was the power of the dark elemental power. Her talent was very ordinary, but it was precisely because of this that it was even more difficult for her to have her current achievements. Although she had lost her previous memories, it had to be said that she had cultivated very hard when she was in the Dark Dragon group. Otherwise, she might not have survived until now. Void Dragon Sky Raising Break. Ran Ran immediately unleashed her strongest attack, sweeping towards the blood-red divine dragon. 6 beams of black divine dragon light arrived with a loud bang, not giving Liang Xiao the slightest time to react. This speed was too fast. Because Ran Ran only cultivated this kind of attack dragon martial technique, she was far more proficient in this move than ordinary people. With a thought, she could condense 6 black dragon shadows and launch an attack. When this attack was launched, the blood-red divine dragon that Liang Xiao had transformed into suddenly roared. The dragon armor that he had been wearing before suddenly appeared, wrapping around the body of this divine dragon. The appearance of the blood-red armor protected his entire body impenetrably. Immediately after, the 6 beams of Void Dragon Sky Raising Break bombarded Liang Xiao's divine dragon body, but were directly blocked by the blood-red armor. It turned out to be a heaven-grade dragon weapon. Kong Shin-mu felt a little uncomfortable. Have heaven-grade dragon weapons become so common now? It seems like everyone has a heaven-grade dragon weapon. However, what Kong Shin-mu did not know was that Chu Qing-yun, whom he had dealt with previously, was a veteran student of the Yuhing district. With enough experience points, he could naturally exchange for a heaven-grade dragon weapon. Liang Xiao had a heaven-grade dragon weapon, which was rare even among the students of the Yuhing district. Although this fellow had just joined the Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Academy, his combat strength was definitely not the lowest among the students of the Yuhing district. In fact, it was quite high. In fact, when the beautiful dean of the Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Academy asked Ran Ran to challenge Liang Xiao, it was not that she had to let Ran Ran win. She just wanted to see how good Ran Ran was. This was because if the students of the Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Academy really lost, she would lose face. From the very beginning, the condition she mentioned to join Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy was not to win this battle, but to perform well. Chapter 4297. The Void Dragon's sky-shattering strike landed on her opponent's blood-colored divine dragon armor, but was unable to break through his defense. This situation made Ran Ran's heart sink. She thought back to when she had fought against Chu Yi from Donghuang Yanggu College. She had been unable to break through Chu Ye's defense and could only attack again and again to exhaust her opponent's energy. Later on, she had to join forces with Prince Bei to break through Chu Ye's defense. If not for Prince Bei, she would not have won so easily. Of course, she would have won in the end. After all, Chu Ye's endurance was too weak. But now, Liang Xiao's defense was a sky-grade dragon weapon armor. This sky-grade dragon weapon armor had extremely strong defense. Although Liang Xiao could only block Ran Ran's attack with his own blood attribute energy, he had exhausted very little of his own energy. If this went on, it would take a long time to exhaust Liang Xiao's energy. However, Ran Ran gritted her teeth and did not think too much. No matter what, she just had to attack. Because of the Dark Dragon's art of filth resistance, the energy in her body was continuously absorbed from her surroundings to replenish her energy. With the Dark Dragon's art of filth resistance, her fighting style was similar to Kong Shinmu's, which was to fight a protracted battle. Perhaps her initial burst of energy was not as strong as Liang Xiao's, but if the battle dragged on, Liang Xiao would definitely become exhausted. 9 Heavenly Dragon Blood Explosion. Just as Ran Ran's attack was blocked by Liang Xiao's counterattack came. A terrifying power and tyrannical aura came crashing down. Almost instantly, a blood-red color enveloped Ran Ran's divine dragon body. The mighty blood-red innate talent, Nirvana, swept over and instantly enveloped Ran Ran's slender black dragon body. The terrifying power spread out and actually sent Ran Ran's black dragon body flying. Specks of blood-red innate talent wrapped around Ran Ran's body and continuously exploded on her divine dragon body, producing extremely terrifying destructive power. No matter how Ran Ran flew in the air, she was unable to get rid of these blood-colored innate abilities. They were like maggots on bones, entangling her body. On the surface, Ran Ran's originally black mystical dragon body had turned blood-red. Furthermore, the blood-red color was exploding continuously, producing extremely strong destructive power. This was the innate power of the blood attribute. One had to say that it was extremely lethal. Unfortunately, Ran Ran's dark dragon filth control had already begun to allow her to recover quickly. Liang Xiao's strength was definitely second to none among the dragon martial artists of the same realm. Unfortunately, Ran Ran was a realm higher than him. As a result, Liang Xiao's attacks were not particularly fatal to Ran Ran. Ran Ran's dark dragon filth control could still allow her to persist for a long time. And just as Liang Xiao was attacking Ran Ran and the 9 Heavens Emperor Dragon Blood explosion descended, Ran Ran was not idle. She constantly condensed pitch-black mystical dragon shadows around the martial sparring arena. Terrifying pitch-black beams of light shot out from the mystical dragon shadows and instantly landed on Liang Xiao's dragon armor. Liang Xiao's attacks did not stop. After a few exchanges, the two were actually evenly matched. At this time, many people were already puzzled. Liang Xiao was extremely powerful, and his 9 Heavens Emperor Dragon Blood explosion was an origin dragon martial technique that was extremely suitable for his innate talent, Nirvana. Although it was only a low-tier origin skill, its destructive power was extremely strong. Especially after stacking, The innate talent of the blood attribute would be attached to the opponent's body. The power of the continuous blood explosion would become stronger and stronger. Ran did not seem to be using any defensive dragon martial technique at all. How could she persist until now? From the looks of it, she did not seem to have cultivated any body-tempering dragon martial techniques. Moreover, many dragon martial artists did not understand body-tempering dragon martial techniques. Many people had guessed from Ran's current performance that Ran's recovery ability was very strong. Otherwise, it was impossible for her to persist for so long. If Liang Zhao's cultivation was not only at the 6th tier of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, this Ran would have been defeated long ago. However, even among the 7th tier of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm students in our Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy, there are not many who can last so long against Liang Zhao, right? That's right, this beauty is very strong. Around the martial sparring arena, people were constantly discussing. As there were more female students, these female students admired Liang Zhao very much. Their own strength might not be weaker than Liang Zhao's, but Liang Zhao had only joined the Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy not long ago. His future was brighter than many people's. How could these female students not admire him? However, there were many people who could see Ran's strength, and they acknowledged it. However, the students present weren't very strong, so they couldn't see the details. On the other hand, the super divine dragon beauty squinted her beautiful eyes when she saw Ran and Liang Zhao fighting until now. She seemed to have seen through something. Interesting. She smiled faintly and didn't say anything. However, after she saw through it, she said, "This battle ends here. Ran's strength is not bad. She can stay in our Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy and temporarily cultivate in the Alcade district." Next match, Kong Xinmu against Xiao Yuhua. Both of you go up. She originally just wanted to see Ran's strength. Now that she had seen most of Ran's strength, there was naturally no need for Ran and Liang Zhao to continue fighting. At this point, Liang Zhao was a little unsatisfied. However, he didn't dare to disobey the dean. After returning to his human form, Liang Zhao looked at Ran with determination and said, "You are not bad." Ran also returned to her slender and beautiful form. She glanced at Liang Zhao and didn't say anything. Then, she turned and ran towards Kong Xinmu. Liang Zhao looked at her back and felt a little disappointed. This beauty didn't seem to be interested in him at all. After fighting with him for so many rounds, she didn't even use her defensive dragon martial technique, but he actually didn't hurt her. It wasn't easy. Liang Zhao didn't think too much and retreated to the side, preparing to watch the next match. After all, he also knew that this match was just an appetizer. Even he wasn't too interested. What Liang Zhao really cared about was the next match between Kong Xinmu and Xiao Yuhua. Liang Zhao had heard about Xiao Yuhua for a long time, but he had never seen her in action. It was said that she was very strong and extremely talented. As for Kong Xinmu, he was forced to come here from Donghuang Yonggu College. This person was even more legendary. He actually joined Donghuang Yonggu College's second school competition and defeated a student from Yuhing District. It was simply terrifying. He wanted to see what kind of skills this Kong Xinmu had. In his eyes, Kong Xinmu was also ridiculously young. So young, but he was able to step into Yuhing District. To be honest, such a genius student would probably become a super dragon god in no time. Talent was all round. The higher the battle power of a dragon martial artist, the faster the cultivation realm and the quality of the divine dragon blood would increase. This was almost an iron rule for dragon martial artists. Chapter 4298. Kong Xinmu couldn't be bothered with Liang Zhao. He walked up to the martial arts forum and cupped his fists at the beautiful girl, Xiao Yuhua, who was walking towards him. Kong Xinmu. Xiao Yuhua was wearing a white dress and looked very pure. However, there was a hint of arrogance in her eyes. She didn't respond to Kong Xinmu's greeting. It was obvious that this girl was very confident in her own strength. Let's begin. As the super mystical dragon lady spoke, the battle immediately began. Kong Xinmu transformed into a black dragon unhurriedly. After all, he wasn't the type to take the initiative to attack. Similar to Ran, he had a defensive and counterattacking fighting style. Furthermore, he had a greater advantage than Ran Ran. Ran Ran didn't cultivate any body-tempering dragon martial technique. Her defense was really too weak. Any dragon martial technique that hit her would seriously injure her. Although the Dark Dragon Filth Mastery could help her recover, it was only effective against opponents at Liang Zhao's level. If it was someone at Xiao Yuhua's level or any other opponent in the Yuhing zone, Ran Ran would probably be killed in an instant if she didn't defend herself. If she died, it would be useless no matter how fast she recovered. Therefore, Kong Shinmu's advantage over Ran Ran was very obvious. His body-tempering dragon martial technique made him extremely resistant to beatings. At this moment, Xiao Yuhua transformed into a 4,000 feet long divine dragon and launched an attack at Kong Shinmu. Ask flowers but don't speak Crimson River. Xiao Yuhua executed a mid-tier dragon origin source martial technique. Immediately after, a red brilliance filled the sky and bloomed like a curtain falling from the sky. However, Kong Shinmu was surrounded by red brilliance. Each red brilliance was like the sharpest knife in the world, slashing towards Kong Shinmu's black dragon body. Martial Dragon Shield. Kong Shinmu's Grade 2 defensive dragon martial skill burst forth, but it only managed to block his opponent's attack for a moment before it was completely unable to withstand it. The crimson rays landed on him like sharp sabers and penetrated his martial dragon shield in an instant, leaving countless bloody holes on his black dragon body. This strength isn't bad, he's much stronger than Chu Qingyun. Kong Shinmu could not help but think. Not only was there no trace of pain in his eyes, but they were also filled with excitement. Fighting in such a fair environment would allow him to clearly understand his own shortcomings, as well as the areas where he needed to improve. Only this kind of battle was what he desired. However, the spectating students, including the beautiful super mystical dragon Dean, could not help but frown. With just one move, the laughing flower had seriously injured Kong Shinmu. What kind of defensive dragon martial skill did this guy use? A second-grade martial dragon shield? This is too lousy. Xiao Yuhua would probably be able to kill Kong Shinmu with just one move. How could he possibly defeat a student from Donghuang Yanggu College in the Yuhing district with such little tricks? Too weak. Was this brat lying? Many people had a strange look on their faces. Lying was meaningless in the face of absolute power. They were more willing to believe that Kong Shinmu was telling the truth. He had indeed defeated a student from the Yuhing district of Donghuang Yanggu College, and it was under the circumstance that the dean had increased his strength by 50% after the other party had cheated. In that case, was it because the students of Donghuang Yanggu College were too weak? They didn't know. The super mystical dragon lady lowered her voice and did not say anything. She was prepared to continue watching. Actually, she had wanted to call a halt. After all, the students of Yuhing district were not new students like Liang Xiao. Their battle prowess was much, much stronger. If she was not careful, Kong Shinmu would be killed by Xiao Yuhua in the next move. That would not be fun. However, she thought of the battle between Ran Ran and Liang Xiao. Ran Ran did not have any defensive means, but she had such a strong recovery ability. Dark Dragon Filth Control. Does this kid also have it? The beautiful dean looked at Kong Shinmu. She saw that although Kong Shinmu's black dragon body was full of holes and blood was flowing from Xiao Yuhua's attack, he was unusually excited and did not have the slightest bit of fear. Void Dragon Sky Raising Strike. Kong Shinmu began to devour his opponent's power. At the same time, he launched a counterattack. His counterattack was the same as Ran Ran's, Void Dragon Sky Raising Strike. 6 black dragon shadows condensed in mid-air and then exploded into 6 beams of light that swept towards his opponent. These 6 black beams of light had quite a strong destructive power. Unfortunately, Kong Shinmu was only at the 5th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm. It was really not enough to fight against Xiao Yuhua, who was at the 8th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm. Even though the 6 black beams of light were powerful, they were directly blocked by Xiao Yuhua's defensive means. But at this moment, Kong Shinmu's physical body became even more powerful after devouring the power of Xiao Yuhua's Origin Dragon martial technique. His original injuries only looked heavy, but in reality, the Dark Dragon Filth Control was already healing him. At this moment, his devouring power had devoured his opponent's power. Flowers Don't Speak Floods the River Red was a dragon martial technique that had extremely strong control over the power of fire. In other words, Xiao Yuhua's divine dragon blood essence was of the fire attribute. At this moment, Kong Shinmu's resistance to the power of fire had directly doubled. If Xiao Yuhua could cause serious injuries to Kong Shinmu before, it could only cause minor injuries now. If it could only cause minor injuries before, it could not even hurt Kong Shinmu now. Xiao Yuhua's power was not weak, but it was not fatal to Kong Shinmu at all. One had to know that he had broken through to the 5th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm and condensed his innate power once. His devouring innate power was now extremely powerful. When devouring the opponent's power, the effect was extremely fast. Flowers don't speak floods the river red. Another attack swept towards Kong Shinmu. The power of fire exploded into a red brilliance, like a saber descending. Xiao Yuhua clearly intended to finish off Kong Shinmu with this move. Based on the situation just now, if Kong Shinmu took this move again, he would be seriously injured even if he didn't die. Then the battle would be over. However, when everyone thought that Kong Shinmu would be seriously injured, the red saber shadow that covered the sky landed on Kong Shinmu's black dragon body and actually only left a few shallow scratches. I don't know why. The surrounding students immediately noticed that the serious injuries that Kong Shinmu suffered just now, those deep saber wounds that were visible to the bone, had almost recovered. Now, they were only covered with a layer of blood, so he looked very miserable. In fact, Kong Shinmu's current state was actually extremely good. What's going on? Is it the same ability as that Ran just now? I don't know, it's too strange. He was obviously seriously injured, but he actually recovered directly? This recovery ability is too fast. Could it be that they have cultivated some recovery origin dragon martial technique? But this kind of fighting method, isn't it too brainless? Moreover, don't they feel pain when they are injured? No, did you guys notice that this time, this Kong Shinmu was attacked by Xiao Yuhua, but he actually didn't suffer any injuries. His physical defense is too strong. That's right, if it was any other 5th level Nirvana Tribulation Realm dragon martial artist, they would be finished in one move. This is a body-refining dragon martial technique? The surrounding spectators finally saw how powerful Kong Shinmu was. At first glance, this person seemed to be seriously injured and didn't have any means. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.